the meeting at 2:05 p.m. and just want to acknowledge we have a request for leave of absence from Councillor Potter. She's away this week, and so I'll move that that be accepted. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duff. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We performed the recognition of traditional owners this morning. Thank you, Councillor Duff, in our committee meeting. So now we'll move on to declaration of interest. Does anyone have a conflict to disclose in relation to anything on the agenda? If not, we'll move on. Confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting at 5.1, page 11. The minutes are as provided, and I'd move that they be received. Do we have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Jones. Any questions, concerns in relation to the minutes from the last meeting, which was held on the 9th of June? Okay, if not, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. 6.1 is the community's budget for 21-22. That's at page... that's at page 11. Get my page numbers mixed up here. So yes, page 11, and we'll hand over to the finance and finance team and general manager to perhaps take us through the handouts that we've received. Thank you very much. So Peter and Selena, we're all yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what I've done is for the community budget, I've actually we've made the changes that have been discussed in previous workshops. So of what I've handed out is the income statement as where we've landed at the moment, and then the revenue and expenditure, which is line by line. The revenue and expenditure is sorted within our manager. A responsibility. So as you go through the report, you'll get to sort of a manager subtotal, which will be, say, for the first one, which is Environment and Services, Craig Patch's area. When you go, you've got no page numbering, so that's handy. But yeah, you'll eventually get through to a manager subtotal, which will show the previous budget, the actuals, the original, and then the budget change. So yeah, that's all through that. So we can step through each of those and talk at a high level on the changes that's been made. But as you'll be aware, I think that the Mayor has circulated a spreadsheet with some suggested changes that he's got. So we just thought it might be prudent to actually go through those with Council first, and then as we're going through each of the individual budget units, we can include some of those in. There are a number in, particularly in the communities area. There's others in some of the other areas, but yeah, I just think, Mr. Mayor, if we go through that spreadsheet, then as we get to, we can sort of do adjustments on the fly or record how we want to deal with each of those changes.
Yes, thanks, Peter. I've got that. I think everyone's got a copy of that. I'm not sure if is everyone able to read that? It's quite small, but anyway, it's there. Everyone's got a copy, Peter? Can we get that up on the screen? Thank you. We'll go to the community section. Finance and Peter have brought forward the budget for communities for recommendation from today's committee meeting, and we thought alongside doing that, we'd have a look at some options as a conversation piece in relation to some of the requested budget allocations so that they can be considered as part of this process. And I guess the reason that I've put that forward today is that Finance really need us to give them a pretty clear indication today as to what the figures are so they can go away and have a draft budget ready for the 14th of July. So we really do need to get some outcomes today, and any changes we want to make after today, well then obviously the only real opportunity will be to do that on the 30th of June at the draft budget, or on the 14th of July when we look to adopt the final budget. So I'm hoping that we could get through some of these today and give Finance an indication as to how committee feels about that, and whether that's something you would like to see in, out or adjusted, so that Selena can then go away and put together the draft budget. So I guess if we can just work through that together, Pete, you and I, and perhaps Selena and Susan. So if we look at general operations for dips and contractors, and please stop me, Peter, if you want to interject there, but at the moment we had 60,000 requested in the budget, and there's a proposal that we reduce that by 10 back to 50, if you can see that there. By I suppose the challenge there is for the Parks and Gardens manager to find the savings, the relevant savings to get that outcome. And the sale yards contractors, 71,966 back to 50,000, which is another 21,966 in savings, if that was adopted. I might just work through this block. Sorry, Peter, you go.
Yeah, I could just give some background around those. So the contractor at the dip, so that's the officer we have got on contract out there to do the scratching. So that's purely that contract in there. The reduction, so this year we're going to end up around the 50, 58, I imagine, maybe close to the 60,000. So that would be under what we would have there. The Coolabunga, the sale yards, is also the contractor there is a component of that. So about half of that budget is the contractor doing the repairs on the yards and their sale days and different stuff there. But there's also contractors in there that might go and fix the water troughs. Cox Plumbing or someone might fix water troughs. The bobcats to clean out the yards. So yeah, electricians if we've got power issues and that sort of thing. So all up, we're looking at around, say, for the contract staff member we have out there, you're looking at around the $80,000 to $90,000 a year. What we had looked at, and that's been an interim arrangement because we weren't sure of the future of the yard. So instead of having a permanent employee, we used to have a permanent employee out there. So probably what we're looking at doing there is when we are looking at the public conveniences versus staff workshop on that we actually just include this in there as well, because it's if we save the contractor, then we'll have employee wages out there. So it's probably just looking at now that we are we think we've got a way forward with the yards. If we have a permanent employee, is there savings there? So I see that. Yeah, I think that'll probably be light on, but hopefully we can have savings in wages that might offset that. So again, a lot of these things I think we're going to be we'll just try work with what we can. This one is a bit up in the air also with the BBRF application, the sale yards out there. So the future of it is a sort of subject to a few decision points yet. So I think if council wanted to adopt those changes, then it's probably just part of the reviews of the whole yard operations that we can include in there, and just flag if we we could look at it at a budget review if there was a different operating sort of.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Any questions or comments in relation to those two items before we move on to the dams?
I'm just supporting that. I've spoken to GMA on this, and we think think it's a way forward because it's all uncertain, and we probably can make some savings. And Councillor Pension and I met with the agents yesterday and talked about ways we could possibly do things differently. So I think it's certainly worth dropping it back and just seeing where it lands as we move forward.
Jones?
Yeah, so just so I get it clear, you're talking about losing the contractor out there that we currently utilise and putting on a permanent staff member, is that correct? No?
Oh, you could look at that, whether it be a permanent staff member or whether you'd have put on a permanent staff member that could be shared between there. So I think a permanent, because where we probably have had savings is we're not operating every day there. So whether you look at operating it as required, sort of say sale days and those particular days where we allow scratching, But yeah, look at the cost versus, like, you're going to have a cost there, whether it's a contract employee or a staff member. He's going to be in that same ballpark.
So I guess the strategy there was to look to try and mitigate the loss, the cash loss at the sale yards and the dips by reducing the those operating costs, and then leave it with the general manager to work through a review process to consider how that could be possibly delivered, whether that be through rearranging the contractors or whether it's through staffing or however, and bring a report back to council.
So by cutting that by 50,000 for your Coolabunnya contractors, how?
Yeah, so we're cutting one.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
Craig.
it was 131.
21,
Yeah, 132 back to 100, back to 100 for the two combined.
yeah. So are you confident then that you can still deliver what's needed out there as far as people with stock transfers, scratching, maintenance, all that included? Are you confident that you can provide a service that these people are used to and expect with that cut in that budget?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say confident. Yeah, I do think we'll need to find savings elsewhere just to top that up. I think we will spend basically what the original budget is on, whether it be contract or employee wages. But I suppose, yeah, we're looking at, if we can incorporate it in, get some efficiencies with the compliance or the parks guys sort of incorporating it back into our operations a little bit more where there is savings there. But, yeah, realistically, I don't see big dollar savings. I think it would be just, we'd be still aiming to deliver the same level of service. So this is an area we're probably not looking at actually reducing the service by that amount. So yeah, I wouldn't say confident, and potentially we'll say we'll be back sort of saying that we couldn't do it for that, and this is the reasons.
Councillor Schumacher.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly I can completely understand what you're trying to achieve, and I think the team, we've all had a go at this, so thank you for your final peer review. But with these two services, for me, I've thought about this, and it's going to come down to service level planning, and I don't feel our council's actually done enough at this point in time. Like, if the budget that's been put forward, I think we have scrutinised this, and I'm comfortable at maintaining it at that current level until such time as we do the service level planning, and that informs our future approach to both Coolabunnya and those dip yards. And certainly I hope to see some savings that we can report through our first quarter report. By all means, once we do that work, I think it's a little, my view, it's a little chicken before the egg to cut them any further at this point in time, noting the previous year's expenditure on these items. I'm not sure. We still have to maintain that service.
Go around. Councillor Pension.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. And this is a bit of a curly one in the fact that, the BBRF could have a fairly big impact, and it's the chicken before the egg or the egg before the chicken. But in the event of that, I'm sure we could certainly maximise our contractors and our expenditure out there, and certainly look at some fairly serious savings in the event of that. That's for sure. I think with Councillor Shoemaker, I'm sure there's some savings, but at the same time, those yards in the repair they're in really need to be looked at and certainly maintained. Now, just on the dips contractors, that figure is the scratching contractor alone, the 60,000 initially, and the sale yard contractors, roughly half of that is that contractor, and then the others, like you said, for water, be it plumbing or electrical or other services. Yeah. Just in this point in time, I think those sale yards certainly need all those services, and whether we can look at them as we move forward. But with Councillor Shoemaker, I think we've really we've got some work to do in that space, and it's dependent on that BBRF funding, that's for sure. But yeah, I'm not sure whether we can jeopardise a facility that the public has been right onto us about and let it deteriorate anymore.
Councillor Froloff.
Yeah, I have concerns about dropping it that much, the sale yards and that, but I do agree with both my counterparts either side of me that I think we need to really look into it a bit more.
I'm gauging then the majority of you here, just from this discussion, is that we don't tamper with that budget at this stage. So just as a process, Mr CEO, am I able to just, if the general appetite discussion, we can do that? Not, yep, in terms of our governance. So are we able to, who has access to that on the screen? Is that you, Linnell? Or Pete, so Pete, can we put that back to 60 for the proposed budget? And put the 50 back to 71,966 then? I think clearly there's a, that's the appetite of the committee at this stage. Oh, if you just take those out, Pete, it should fix the form. Aren't they formulas, Selena? Yeah, just change those, Pete, and it'll fix your formulas. So change that to 60. Proposed budget to 60, yeah, that's it. The formula is in the adjustment column, Pete. Yeah. And then the adjustments are formularised. Yep. We had in there, Pete, 705. And the next one was 20. Yep. And 735. Yep. So that's right. Yep. So that should all be back to where it was. Yeah, righto. So if we then move on to the dams, when we look at the year-to-date on Yalakul accommodation income and the fact that we've only traded for 10 months of the year, it would seem as though we're well and truly on track to get to over 700,000 this year. I think we're about 693 already, Selena, weren't we? So it looks as though we're probably going to get the 700,000. So we thought that a more reasonable estimate may well be 705 rather than 615, which seemed to be overly conservative and low, unless there's any mitigating factors that disrupt the operations of the dam, particularly with the new managers now settled in having extended their term. Similarly with the other income, we had nothing in the other income budget, but from looking at the year-to-dates, there would be $20,000 that would come in there. Boondooma was a similar situation. The year-to-date's such that we thought we could track that up to 735 realistically, unless there's a major disruption again to Boondooma. And the kiosk income was about 202, I think, already year-to-date, or 203. So with the way that's tracking, we thought that should go to 220 with a full year of operations. So I might just deal with that. Any comments, discussion points on that? Councillor Shoemaker?
Just a question, Mr. Mayor, in terms of how these calculations were done, and that's probably my question there. I can certainly understand your point, but I do want to make sure the revenue we put in is reasonable to what we're currently tracking. So just want to understand more the methodology for calculating the proposed budget that you've got here.
Yeah, so what we did was took the year-to-date, and then I think we divided by the number of weeks, and then extrapolated it out to the full 52 weeks, and then got that to where we would be come year end. I'm pretty sure that was the methodology. Don't quote me, but Selena, we went through that sort of process, didn't we? I think from memory, that's what I did. And we sort of, we didn't factor in 12 months as against last year was, I think, 10 months, was it? We didn't open until early September. We had a couple of months out, and from conversations I've had with the managers, even the winter trade this year looks like it's going to be up throughout July and August. So where we would normally probably have quiet July and August, it seems to be the COVID effect is still they've got strong bookings for the next couple of months down there. So that was the general methodology there.
Pete, the ones just above, just so as we go through, can you just go up to those first two we did? Can you just put the background on the proposed budget to green? Or yellow, or, no, the ones that you've done as you go through, just so we know they've been done, so we don't end up going back over them.
Yeah, understand all the comments around the numbers. I get very nervous. The information and the conversations I've always had since I've been part of putting budgets together is don't make assumptions and don't rely on grant funding and all that sort of stuff. And I know that this all indicates that this is going to go up, and yes, on the figures that we have in front of us, but again, this is an assumption of what we think will possibly happen next year. And if we add 90 grand, we're talking about 110,000 on the two dams and other income, getting close to 150. That it's a big assumption, and I'm not saying that the assumption's wrong. I'm not saying it's right, but to put a budget together in the dealing with the figures and the conditions that we're in at the moment, and yeah, I struggle. I struggle to feel comfortable with that. They're big numbers.
Yeah,
You're right.
I think every budget, one of the principles underlying budgeting, Selena will confirm me, in accounting, we learn at the university that when one does budgets, one must always underpin that with assumptions. Our assumption there would be that we'll do in the next 12 months what we've done in the last 10 months. I personally don't think that is over the top. Unless there's something that causes the dams to be closed for a period of time, or we get a lack of inflow of trade. I would hope, and I would have thought that under normal trading conditions, if they continue as they've done for the last 10 months, that we would exceed those numbers. Yeah, so I don't think that they're unrealistic assumptions in my view, considering we've only traded for 10 months this year and we're tracking towards those figures. Selena, please correct me if I'm wrong there too, please.
So I had a look at the actuals. The actuals were 657 today. When we did the first run through with this, we treated that as if it was 11 months of the year, and I hadn't realised that the dams were closed for the couple of months. So if you divide that by the 10 and times it by 12, you get out around 788. So that's how that was calculated. And the same with the same with Yibanduma. We've assumed that it was closed for the 2 months, and if you extrapolated those extra couple of months, which the first run through, that wasn't taken into account. So, yeah.
I will say I did do an integrity test with the finance team on my numbers, and we made adjustments on their advice where perhaps I'd been a little bit overzealous in some places. Councillor Pension.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I just, on the error of caution and without sounding pessimistic, with two sides of this, in the event of we don't get rain and the dams, certainly BP, drops lower than it is, and two sides to the COVID fact that had a big impact on us last year, that if restrictions were to get lifted and things opened up some more, does that mean in the event of no rain, people might go somewhere else and expand their wings a little bit more within our state or our region and not necessarily to our dams with no water? And two, if we happen to come back into a COVID situation and they shut down again, those figures will be blown out of the water. And I appreciate the methodology going behind it, and I think that's great. I'd love to see that and some, but they're just the factors that worry me a little bit in uncertain waters at the moment with that.
So, sorry, through you, Mr Mayor. So I was very nervous about putting the revenue up, as the Mayor will allude to. However, I was comfortable with the increase in the revenue, provided the expenditure wasn't increased. So past practice has been the revenue offsets the expenditure. I was okay with the risk that the revenue went up as long as the expenditure didn't go up by the same amount, because if you give somebody an expenditure budget, they will spend it. However, in this case, if you don't get the revenue, we haven't increased the expenditure, so you could reduce the revenue without that additional impact.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the clarification in the calculations. I'm quite comfortable in amending the budget to reflect those adjustments in revenue based on the information provided by the finance team and the reality that those dams were closed for 2 months over COVID. And certainly I'm hearing you, Councillor Pension. I think it's something we watch, but noting that the expenditure items haven't been increased, I'm okay with that at this point in time. I think that's excellent. That's 110,000 we hadn't accounted for. So thank you for bringing that forward.
Councillor Henson.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just for clarification on the Yallourn other income at 20,000.
There was 20,000 in there year to date. There's 17,500, and it is made up of. Yeah, there's a heap of receipts in there for the FPOS, and we thought maybe there were didn't we discussed that it could have been the ticket sales and stuff for some of the concerts and that were held, and that was going to happen again. Those concerts were predicted to happen again in the next 12 months. So yeah, yep.
Any other comments before we move on to rural services? Okay, rural services then. Look, I might probably call on Peter and Councillor Henson and Councillor Duff perhaps to speak to this. We're suggesting that there could be the option to find some efficiency savings in the way that we deliver the spraying on rural services, hence the proposed potential $100,000 saving. But we'll be guided by my learned colleagues on this as to how that could pan out.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just going to give background. So this is essentially, we have a contract with the weed spraying company to deliver all our on-ground work, so whether it be the Parthenium spraying or honey locust, or but they also do any property inspections if we need assistance in property inspections, or we have weed incursions where we're doing assessments. So yeah, they basically are our on-ground deliverer of the rural services, the spraying. They do the contracts for the roadside thing. That's under a separate contract, and I think they might even do some guidepost stuff for infrastructure and that. But yeah, this is in the NRM. I do see this one as potentially a reduction in service delivery. I would think it's and this is going to have to be part of when we do our biosecurity plan, is reviewing our priorities in what weeds we are going to be spraying and what activities we are going to undertake. So, yeah, I suppose if we can work to a budget, but I do see this one will impact on say how much chemical we can get on the ground.
Councillor Henson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Graham. Very interesting one, being certainly rural myself, along with Councillor Duff over there. I really would like to, and we have, and I've got here our biosecurity plan 2018 and 23, that I really think there's some work we can do in this space. I really do. Chemicals are improving and changing, be it labels and be it non-generics. I think there's a lot of work we can do in this space, and I really believe we can save some money here and do it as effectively and efficiently, or more so. That's a big call. I'm sure our guys on the ground and our contractors, am I correct in saying the contract is renewed in a short period of time?
Yeah, so I meant to say, so we went out to tender for this contract in 2019, but it's a 12-month renewal, so there's options to renew it for every 12 months. So I think in another 6 months' time, we'd have the option of whether we renew it for another 12 months. So it was a 12-month with was it either 3 or 4 options to renew it for a 12-month period. So it was can't remember, there was 4 or 5 years. So it was either 1 year with 4 options or 1 year with 3 options. But we had the option of whether we renew it each 12 months, and that'll be January. That will come up.
The other big thing with this, of course, is it's seasonal. You know, we have summer, we have winters, we have different weeds in summers and winters, we have different weeds in different areas. I know down in Councillor Duff's division, we've got some weeds that are certainly not relevant in any other division in the South Burnett. And that goes for each division. I know Councillor Duff and I talked with a gentleman the other day, and I think there's 61 pages in this document. It's been pretty well put together, but in a changing environment, I really would like us to look at that in depth over time. And I'm not sure about the $100,000 on there, but I really would like to think we can make some improvements there.
Any further comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I think that we need to really look at our biosecurity plan. It hasn't been looked at since 2018. I think there are, as Councillor Henson said, the way that the different chemicals now, there's ways to do things differently. We can be more strategic, do more stuff with the actual landholders on the ground, and I think there is an opportunity to make savings, and I'm keen to cut this back because I think we can do it more efficiently, and particularly if that's going out to having another opportunity to go out to tender again, and maybe get some local contractors on the ground. I think we could do it more strategically and probably more efficiently. So keen to to see if we can do it in that budget that is being proposed with the Mayor's 100,000 reduction.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I've heard the comments from Councillor Henson, Councillor Duff, and agree with both of what they're saying. My question is, this to me is exactly the same as the dip contractors, Coolabunny sale yards. We need to look at it. We need, as Councillor Shoemaker said, we need to get a plan in place. If we just go in and take $100,000 out of our rural services contractors and all that straight up in this budget, it has to affect the service level that we deliver. It has to. Are we not better off understanding the fact that, yes, we do, and I completely have faith in both the councillors that are talking, because I would suggest they know more about this than myself, but I'm just talking, my reference is to the service levels, that what people, and this is one of the only few services that we deliver to our rural people. So again, conscious of that fact, do we not, or have we not collected an environmental levy over a long period of time, and was that ever rolled into the rates? Is that still being paid, or can someone just explain that as far as a payment from our ratepayers, Darryl?
Yes, Councillor Jones, the environmental levy was rolled into the general rate back in 2018-19, I think it was. At that time, I think the amount was $12.50 per property per annum. So yeah, that had been in place since amalgamation, I believe, but it was rolled into the general rate.
Yeah. So again, and we've had discussions in this chamber around budget discussions all the way through, and yourself, Mr. Mayor, speaking about in future having environmental payments or whatever. But yeah, I would hate to see this taken out up front, acknowledging the fact that yes, the two councillors that are rural and represent our rural people are aware of that and have made quite obvious that there is opportunity to make savings, but I would like to think that we leave it as it is. I would like to see it left as it is, moving forward with a plan to reduce over a period of time with more KPIs and all that sort of stuff around our rural services and contractors.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly welcome the opportunity to workshop the plan that has been Councillor Henson. I haven't seen that one yet around biosecurity and the weeds that we do treat. And certainly the insight gained from our last community engagement day was very valuable in that sense. I'm just looking at our previous workshop. The original budget allocation for this item that the team brought forward was 485, and according to my notes, we clawed back 22,548, which led us to the 462,452, and that was against an actuals budget of 446,522. Probably, if we can, just check what the actuals are to date, just noting that my figures might be old. For me, it's around cost versus value. I think we need to be very strategic around what things we are treating and how we're spending the money that we have. I do think 100,000 is probably too much in the current environment, but I am, wondering if there's an opportunity maybe to pull back a small amount, I'm kind of sitting on the fence. I think I probably want to do more of that cost versus value, really understand the service level and the strategy that the previous council set, so that we can go about that in a responsible way. But do we have the actuals to date on?
If I have the correct, Pete,
Yep.
it's in business unit 1100, it's 463,610.
Yeah, and look, can I say this? I've only just put these forward as a conversation piece. I mean, as an accountant, I don't know what impact the 100,000 would have. I'm with Councillor Jones. If this is going to mean that we get less service to our farmers and we can't control those weeds, I wouldn't be in favour of it, to be honest. If we can uphold the service and find more smarter ways of doing it and save 100,000, great. As long as that's not going to mean that weeds get out of control and farmers get one less service that they would otherwise have received. So I'd love to find 100,000 if it's doable, but as I said, I'm not a weed person. I'm a numbers man, a bean counter. So from my point of view, if the learned advice, if the advice from Peter, from you and from Hook and Kathy is that, we really need to leave the budget alone, or maybe as Councillor Shoemaker said, maybe only make a small adjustment. It looks as though they're going to spend 470 this year anyway, from those figures you just quoted, Selena. So look, unless we can demonstrate how we're going to save it without compromising the service, I'm probably not keen just to rip into it. But I don't know, I'll be guided by you, Councillor Pension. It's your portfolio.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I this is a serious challenge, and I would like to see that left there for this year. But I really think in the next 12 months that we can workshop this and we will come up with some serious savings in that department. I really do, and I said it's seasonal. To me, and being rural, this is extremely important, and unfortunately I know a little bit about weeds. But I honestly do believe that there's a mountain of work we could do that would be seriously beneficial when we're sitting here this time next year, looking at these numbers and where we'll go with that. And I'm sure we can improve that out of sight with a revamp of our 61-page document there, which is a great document, but things change in the weed department rapidly and with seasonal conditions, and certainly since 2018, and that was done to 2023, we've experienced our worst drought in 150 years. And we've had an incredible start to our winter, so all of a sudden we're seeing weeds we've never seen and do what they've never done before. So, look, I'd be supportive to just leave that untouched and certainly work long and hard this next 12 months to take that to another level.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just had a question. Noting Councillor Henson's comments, and I really do admire your passion and enthusiasm. I think it's really important in this area. I just wanted to understand, probably through GM Susan or certainly Selena, if we do end up in a position 6 months' time when we've reviewed that strategy and identified a way in which to make some savings, do we then track that through our quarterly adjustments and reports? Yeah, that's my question.
Yes, that is correct. We do the quarterly adjustments. So if we find savings, say by Christmas, I'd say you're probably going to be 6 months, maybe 9 months. So even in the third quarter, if there is savings, we can make adjustments to the budget for that.
Okay, well, it seems the majority view is. I can't see your.
Yeah,
I can't see your
sorry.
light, Kathy. It's behind
Sorry.
the screen. Thank you.
I just want to say, I'm not about cutting rural services. I just thought, the same as Councillor Henson, that we could do it the same service but for less cost, because we could do it more efficiently. and with different chemicals and doing it, yeah, I just agree with Councillor Henson that there's certainly savings to be made. And I was just hoping that, through this budget process, because we are looking to make cuts, that we could make that sooner rather than later. But if we have to, wait till we actually achieve that, that's fair enough.
Yep, thanks, Councillor. I think there's a lot of sense in what we're hearing, that let's take our time and do this properly and not make rash decisions that are going to affect our farmers adversely. So sounds like a good process. Councillor Henson?
Just one last comment. It'd be an interesting statistic if we could bring up what that figure was in 2019-20 to 2021 because of the drought, and that would give a very good comparison of just where weed, rural services and weed control, what it does. Just for an interesting statistic.
It was $461,320, 1920 actuals. What we've previous budget. I've only got the 19.
Therein lies, I think we can do a lot of work in that area.
Okay, so can we green that one out? Pete, we'll leave that one as is. Public convenience is another controversial one. And again, it's just a conversation piece. I don't know whether I'm on the mark here or not. Just putting that in as a bean counter again. Trying to find some savings where we can. I suppose I'm keen to look forward to the review that Councillor Shoemaker's talked about in terms of what's the right balance between contractors and staff to get the most efficient outcome for the cleaning of our public conveniences. But again, really up to the group as to whether you think you want to wait and see what that brings, leave the budget as it is, or whether you want to try and set some targets this year. I'll hand over to the floor. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Again, this one is, as you say, an area where we all believe that we could possibly find savings and whatnot. Councillor Shoemaker, as you've just alluded to, has asked for a workshop, which I think would be fantastic. And again, are we not better off waiting until we get into that workshop, getting under the nitty gritty, do that review in the first quarter and all that sort of stuff where we can make adjustments? Or do we, again, without knowing all the information and not knowing the comparison between staff, contractors and all that sort of stuff at this stage, it makes it difficult to support any numbers that are thrown up there for me. But I'm certainly, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that that's off the table. I think we need to, all these suggestions here are all legit, but I think there's a lot of work that needs to go into this for me to make sure that I'm comfortable with the figures that have been thrown up. And again, not denying anything at all in the fact that we can make considerable savings, but I just wanted to make, we don't know the actuals, staff, we don't know the correct figures or whatever without that information, I don't think.
Might go around. I can't see your light, Kathy. Yep.
So
You're going to leave that up high. Yeah, thank you. Otherwise, you'll have to move down the other end. Councillor Duff, sorry.
So I was keen to support Acting Manager Mark Watt in this to go out to tender for the contractors. This is an area that I just really think we need to get right. I'm concerned about our livability and we've had a lot of complaints about our amenities. So I'm a bit reluctant to actually move on this one until we get that proper review done.
Might go around. What's other thoughts, Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, Mr Mayor, just going back through what we've workshopped previously, I can see there was a variance of $138,903 on the original proposed budget of $225 that brought us up to that $363,903. And I just wanted to confirm with GMO May, it was my understanding from the workshops and conversations we've had with Manager Watt that variance, that increase was due to the current costs of cleaning those services. But certainly there's that appetite to review our process our service level and what we do going forward. I just wanted to check that, GMO May.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Yeah, so it was all of the public convenience contracts are out, so we're actually factoring in that they're expecting fair increases in some of those contracts. So that's why there was a big increase in there. Again, I probably see this one that there is. Maybe the cut is a bit too high. Like we're up to probably around, say, 275 this year to date. Again, whether it'd be fair enough to drop or make that 300 drop the 63,000 out and as part of the workshop as a thing. So, we are, the park stuff, we have got the additional resources in there this year, so which is what probably a bit of a backup. We do think that there is some comfort that, again, even if a contractor's delivering it, if we have savings in those areas. I'll probably see that this one, it is a big jump on the previous year, substantial sort of. That's all. Just thought, probably as a compromise, if you put that one back to 300 and save the 64,000. Again, it's going to be reviewed through the year as we workshop that, and I think Mark was looking in the first week of July, trying to come back to council with that. So it is one we want to do early on in the piece and get some of those contracts out. On the reverse, going to tender, hopefully we might get some competition and get some cost savings in the contract. So that'd be nice, and that's probably why we're looking at it as a package. If you can package up some of those, you can get a bit more savings rather than 50. We got 52 toilet blocks. If you have 52 individual contracts, they'll be quite expensive. But I know they have looked at packaging before to try and get those economies of scale. So
Yeah, excellent. No, thank you for that clarity. And certainly, looking at that variance, it was quite a high jump. So based on the feedback you've given, I'm happy to decrease the current budget allocation by that 64,000 and just round it out at 300,000 neat, representing a $60,000 saving, and then certainly prioritise that work early in July. It's great to hear Manager Watt's already onto that, so thank you.
What other thoughts? Councillor Pension?
Yeah, I'd be supportive of Councillor Shoemaker there, and work in progress. As Pete knows, we get smashed on some facilities in certain little villages and towns by particular people. So, that's I'm happy with the 64,000 off that.
Anyone that has a particular concern about that? General guidance, change that to 300,000. Pete, do you want to plug that in? Green that out? Thank you. Okay, thanks everyone. So that's Anoraman Parks. Pete, can we scroll down to some of your other departments? We can just scroll further down. So if we then go to planning, happy if we look at planning, Peter. So at the moment, there was a budget in there of 180,000 for contractors and 80,000 for certifiers. Probably deal with those two first as expense items. The third item is a revenue for fees for plumbing and drainage. Look, I'm probably Selena, I can't recall what was our rationale around that, but which doesn't give you confidence. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think you had that. You were looking at we probably did double up. We had a contractor in here, and we haven't budgeted for a full-time employee for the period. So that probably is a reasonable reduction because we budgeted for our private certifier, but we have budgeted full year wages. We won't have an employee in there, but we can use that sort of off. So it'll probably be a split between wages and contractor, but the overall budget could probably come down by that. So yeah, we have probably doubled up. We've got I'm sure that was the rationale, Selena, behind that one.
That's correct. The notes I have is that there was 40,000 booked year to date for building certifier and the new position is budgeted.
Thanks, Selena. I knew you'd taken notes. Thank you. With the building certificate, similar there, Pete? 100 back to 80, or what are your thoughts?
That's revenue.
It's revenue, sorry. Yeah, so what have we got there? 80 and proposing we could do 100. Selena, what was the year to date? Did we have the year to date figure on building certification fee?
Yeah, 109.
Guess
So
when we
that's-
discussed that, we talked about the fact, that's 109, is it? Yeah, that's on building certificates, the
Yeah.
second line. We've got 80 there. We talked about the fact that a lot of the DAs have gone, or what the building approvals, not sorry, DAs, building approvals have gone through, but a lot of the building certificate certification and plumbing certification work is still to flow through. A lot of builders have got plans approved but still haven't done the work, and that there's a big backlog of building work to be done over the next 12 months. And so we thought that 80,000, when we had 109 year to date, was probably overly conservative, that perhaps 100,000 would be a more realistic expectation of the revenue.
Yeah, I might go, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm comfortable with these two. The certificates and buildings is our building searches and that. I think the property market is starting to move. I do see that continuing. So, yeah, we are over that 100,000 year to date to now. So comfortable with that. And same with the plumbing fees. It is an increase, but we are over that 450 now. So if that falls back, so the risk is, I think, as Councillor Jones said before, if you overestimate your revenue, then it can bite you later on. But yeah, I think we can probably incorporate those two into the budget.
And
Probably
again,
just trying to be a little bit realistic with a tinge of conservatism here. That's probably the approach I've tried to take, Councillor Jones. I'm not trying to be unrealistic and give the community false figures, but just trying to be realistic and then say, well, maybe we'll do 110, but let's tweak it back to 100, just in case something doesn't go quite to plan. Yeah, so I've tried to do that in every case, is just tweak it back to make sure that we're going on the lower side, not the higher side.
Yeah, probably just on feedback on these, because we put this budget together a couple of months ago, and I think the last 3 months, the fees, and even since we were doing a fourth quarter review a month ago, the revenue that has come in is actually sort of over a surprised what's coming in. So, I think, I'm comfortable if we put those ones in.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, the other, again, I'm comfortable with this, provided he didn't get the increased expenditure. So I'm okay with the revenue as long as his expenditure didn't go up.
Your income is far outweighing your outgoing, so, you know, if you're in business, you're never going to fail with that, are you?
Yeah, and we have already factored in, Peter, I think, believe the extra certifier for plumbing and building, haven't we, into our wages? Yeah. Okay, so is there anyone that's particularly against greening that out? No? Okay, Pete, I think you've got your answer there for those 3 lines. We're all down to properties, and again, look, this is just the bean counter and me throwing up some targeted figures. Selena, we might talk about contractors and property maintenance first, with property maintenance obviously being the big one. We can get you to talk to, Pete. So what was that $80,000 adjustment we did there for contractors again? Sorry?
The $80,000 had no actuals and no comments in the budget packs. That's why we removed it.
No actuals in that line, Peter, but we'd asked for an $80,000 budget. So unless there's something we're missing there.
Yeah, so that 80,000 was for services, and it was the one we discussed through. And Leanne, and apologies for Manager Property Leanne, she's been crook all week, so not with us again today. She had calculated out the $80,000 worth of services. So it was things like the air conditioning filters and sort of those minor servicing that we have. I couldn't find her workings. I could get to about 50,000, and this year a lot of those things have just been getting booked into the property maintenance rather than at that services line. So that there was no. I think there was a budget of 16,000 or something showing against that. So following our property workshop, I think we had 600 and something in maintenance. So we went back and took 46,000 out of maintenance. It was 540. It was actually 546 plus. There was another 120 for, I think, the ice machines, or another 98. There was 98 for the 90 for the ice machines, which we're going to capitalise, $8,000 for a building. So we took this one back from, I think, 646 to 500,000, and that 46 was taking into account that we had budgeted for services that 80,000, which wasn't there. So property maintenance is a bit one of those ones where it's best guess for the year, I suppose. You don't know what is going to be needed there. yeah, so I think probably that like these can be either or sort of thing. So if you have it at $80,000, you can in that one, then it's whether it gets booked of services or whether it gets booked of materials.
Can I just ask, sorry to interrupt, Peter, but so what's the year to date on property maintenance?
589.
589. Yeah, okay. So the 500 and the 80 it's not far off the mark, is it, in terms of what was spent last year? I suppose what I was trying to achieve there is a bit like the White Fleet, to set a target and see whether the staff could try and work to meet that target as a efficiency gain for the way in which we do our property maintenance. I worry that if we keep spending 500,000 or 600,000 every year, are we actually improving the asset or are we maintaining it? Because I know if I own a building and I spend the same amount of money maintaining it each year, I would have thought it'll get to the point where the maintenance costs start to decline because the building is to the point where it doesn't need much more maintenance. Whether we're at that point yet with our buildings, I don't know. But again, it was, well, do we just take what we gave last year and give it to them again this year? Or do we try and look for some sort of a efficiency gain somehow through this process? I don't know how you do a review on our property maintenance program to make sure that we're not spending more than we really should be. But it does concern me that I don't have any understanding around how we spend the money, what we spend it on, and whether we're doing things that perhaps we don't need to do, considering that we are. I just keep going back to the comment from the Treasury guys that do what you have to do, do what you need to do, not what you'd like to do. And I hope we're not doing any nice to haves in there. So I don't know. I'm not sure. Peter, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, well, we certainly do. When we went through and did the building condition assessment report, so we got a maintenance schedule out of that. So there is definitely a maintenance program there, and again, this is probably a bit like the weed spray. You can spend as much or as little as you want, but I would think the only saving grace in this one I do see is the Works for Queensland program has helped. So last year we did a series of roof replacements, floor coverings, painting, which does help our maintenance because when we're there doing a painting, we'll fix up the gutter. There is some savings for that. So again, like with this one, I suppose if we kept the 80,000 in the contractors, which is those sort of minor services, then I think if you'd had the 100,000 out of the property maintenance and yeah, again, you see how we go. If we have a major failure like a roof started collapsing in the library or something, and we had to do some maintenance, then we can probably bring back a report and look at a budget review, and we can also probably look at those maintenance schedules, what we have got our forward maintenance, and between this and Works for Queensland, if we can put some of those stuff into that Works for Queensland, we have got 630 Works for Queensland. So yeah, I'd be keen to see a lot of that going into the renewals and maintenance stuff in the property area. So I think if we could get the 80,000 back, we could take the pain of the 100 and work with that.
Peter, if we do that, how's the coding work that? Do we then have contractors, would the 80,000 cover all the contractors and then the 400 that's left is just for materials or something? What's the difference in how you code there?
Well, I suppose we were just trying to, with that contractor, set up an area where try get all of those minor contracts to sit in the one spot, so it was easier to say for council, look at what's that 80,000 made up of. It's this servicing of air conditioners, servicing of filters, it's the UV filters on the backflow prevention, whatever, like all of those little contracts. So we were probably trying to separate them out a little bit as services that wasn't lumped in together with a $500,000 bucket. So it was probably a little bit more visible. Because if you do have a big 500,000, it is a bit harder. Probably some of our reporting around our asset reporting, we probably need to bring back and demonstrate where this is going, I suppose, for council, like what the 500,000 of maintenance is made up on. So I think maybe that's an area if we can improve and you can see actually where it's going into, and that will help.
Would it be the case that perhaps you said about replacing a roof that was broken? That'd be a renewal though, wouldn't it? And would it be the case that maybe we are coding things to repairs that get OPEXed when they could be put through as a capital item under renewals? I mean, if we replace a roof, I would have thought that's a
Yeah,
renewal.
that's probably a bad example, but it's
But are we doing that? Are we coding some stuff to OPEX that should be renewals? I don't know. I'm just asking the question.
yeah. Oh, it's a valid question, and we sort of do need to, but yeah.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. In my experience in the past, it's been the other way around, where a lot of the maintenance in the past that we picked up was done through capital programs because there wasn't a large capital program for renewals. So my understanding when we work with Leanne through her AMP is that she has two programs. One is for capital replacements, and she also has a major list of defects. I think she's probably just trying to manage both needs at the same time with two buckets of money. So there probably is opportunity there, but if you saved in OPEX, you would probably need to offset that into capital as well to clear those backlog of those maintenance items.
So it could well be under budgeting in property maintenance, Aaron, is what you're saying.
Or if you don't- because it wasn't maintenance being spent on the buildings. So,
Yeah, I've got to admit, General Manager, that surprises me. I would have thought it was different, but I'll be guided by your advice.
Yeah, no, that's I could be wrong, but that was my understanding that there was a lot of maintenance getting done because that was the bucket. If I got that the wrong way around, I apologise, but it was
Yeah, no, look,
there was definitely picked up that one way or the other we went, that shouldn't do that. So
if we're replacing a section of a roof that is a whole section, is that not a renewal under the accounting standard as against if we're replacing guttering, that is the entire guttering, is that not a renewal component as against a repairs that we don't need to be OPEXing? I'm not sure, Selena. What's the accounting treatment on that? Okay.
yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor, you're not wrong in saying about the roof. It just depends on the component and the value. So you're definitely right. If you're replacing a roof, that should be a capital item. Don't disagree at all in that space. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you. Rightio. So let's go around the room. Councillor Jones.
Yep. I've got a different view to our general manager. I want to see that left in there because we have a huge asset list in property. Am I wrong in saying that all our staff, when it comes to operational budgets and whatever else moving forward in this 12 months, will be doing their utmost to make savings all the way through? So if you have a budget of 500,000, you would be aware that we would be, as a group of councillors, keen to see any savings whatsoever. Would that be a fair comment?
I think it goes without saying. I think, yeah.
Okay, so to me, we've given that a fair whack already in the discussions we've already had at 5 to get it down to 500. And hearing all the comments from Pete and all that sort of stuff, we have a huge asset register for property. And 500,000, I think, with the 580,000 year-to-date actuals, all that sort of stuff, it compares pretty favourably. And if we take 100,000 out of it, then you come back to us and say, oh, you need we needed to replace something for $100,000 and we've taken it out of the budget. I'd rather go the other way and have it there if we need it. And at the end of the year, if we don't spend it, we've got it there at the end, or quarterly reviews or something like that.
But Councillor, if we had to spend 100,000 to replace something, again, my argument, wouldn't that be a renewal? I'm not sure I'm confused here, I'm sorry. I'm becoming frustratingly confused. I'm trying to find savings here to help us all. I'm sure we are all working together, but I don't subscribe to the philosophy that the staff will find every saving and cent that they can. I think sometimes we've got to show leadership in setting some targets and some benchmarks for them and saying, look, guys, we'd like you to try and work within this if you can. And if you can't, come back and tell us. But if we don't set targets, how do we expect our staff to know what we're trying to achieve? Ask the right questions. Think, is it affordable? Be brave. I don't know, Councillor Jones. If we've got to replace something for 100,000, surely we should code that to renewals and capitalise it. Not just give another 100,000 out for repairs that we've got to ask the ratepayers for. I'll put that out there. But anyway, look, I'll be guided by the group. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've just been backtracking through my notes here. I just wanted to check. So that Contractors 63552, just confirming, like in our original, I think in the documentation you gave me today, the MOMA, the original budget proposed is 180 and the actuals to date were 107,314. There's been so many numbers thrown around here. I just want to confirm, is that adjustment of 80,000 actually achievable based on the actuals? Because I've got notes here about that new land sales officer as well. I just wanted to confirm that wasn't involved in that. Because if that is, that's a great outcome.
What line are you on?
63552, the contractors for properties. I've got in the budget document that you gave me today, the budget allocation is for 180. The actuals to date were 107, and we had made a saving of 5,000 because it was a 185 originally.
Yeah.
Oh, or am I in planning? Sorry, I'm on the wrong page. Hang on.
You'd be pleased to know that Peter's made some savings.
I was going to say, wow, Pete, that's amazing. Sorry, my apologies. My apologies. Oh gosh, I was thinking, yes. I know how hard we've all worked on finding these savings, so no, I appreciate that. So now that I'm on the right page, 63051, property maintenance, and we're suggesting there, I just want to confirm, so suggesting taking that from 500 to 400, that's what you're proposing, Mr. Mayor? Yep. And I just want to confirm, so year-to-date actuals of 589. Yeah, I'm hearing the conversation, and I know we've talked a bit about this, certainly from an assets point of view, and going through the potential works for Queensland, the draft list here, I think we've got to get much more strategic with the funding that we're getting, and funding projects that are more about our needs and less about our wants. And I can see in the draft project list for works for Queensland, like I'm probably really keen to see which of these projects, we might be able to cross-subsidise, I don't know if that's the right word, some of our maintenance with some of our proposed renewals. Like, I'm looking here, like there's an extensive internal and external painting program that's been put up for consideration. Are those the kind of things that happen in maintenance, or is that just general, like is maintenance floor coverings, paintings, those general things, or is maintenance, I know we've talked about it, asbestos reports and fire, Chubb fire safety reports and those sorts of things. I'm sorry, I know we've had so many conversations, but I just want to be clear, if there is an opportunity, by all means, to maybe use some of our Works for Queensland to cross-subsidise our maintenance bucket, I'd be keen to look at that.
Yeah, no, it will. It will help the Works for Queensland, and it can be even minor things, like if we're doing repaintings and the doors not hanging properly or different. Like there is little things that can get patched along the way while they've got, or if the carpenter's there doing a re-roofing and there's other minor works that come up, then those things can happen. Like you fix it as you're going, sort of thing. So. There are savings, but the example of the roof falling in, that was a bad example, because it would be if you've got a major capital expense like that. But I suppose at the maintenance, you're trying to get the stage, things like an air conditioner going, and you've got an electrician coming up or something, and you can do $2,000 or $3,000 there. Well, that will sort of go to maintenance rather than sort of replacing a whole system. So those sort of.
It is. I'm probably sitting on the fence a little bit here. Like I understand. I certainly understand the discussion that's had. Noting that we have saved to date, just for your reassurance, Mr. Mayor, $46,000 out of that line item, which has taken us back to that 500. But I do wonder about the potential, maybe through some of the Works for Queensland work, to maybe draw, I understand maybe not the full 100, but even maybe setting a target of 480 or something like that, noting that there will be minor works that we can do while we're doing some of those works for Queensland projects, rendering cracking in the council chambers, internal, external painting, kitchen fit-outs deteriorating in some of our offices. Like, these are some of the projects that have been put forward for Works for Queensland, and yeah, I can see maybe there's an opportunity to test that, see how it goes, and by all means, if we're not achieving, if Leanne comes in and it's not by no means achievable, well, that's something we have to consider in our first budget review. But maybe if we say 480 or 470 and see how things are tracking at that first quarter, noting the money that we've got for Works for Queensland, and certainly I'm keen to see that spent on needs, less than wants, no new projects. That's my thinking at this point in time for that particular line item. Maybe it's an opportunity similar to the leasing, where we're setting a target and see how we track.
Councillor Freloff.
Thank you, Mayor. Pete, sorry, when I know it's off the thing again about the roof falling in, wouldn't we be covered under insurance by that?
Yeah, bad example again. Yeah, yeah, no, yeah. Is it? So yeah, red herring. So yeah, no, it's yeah. And actually, sometimes I think. Oh no, I won't say that on camera. Actually,
The roof's caving in. What? Yeah. Well, so what's the general feeling? We want to leave it as it is, put it back to the 500, go to 480. I'll be guided by what the appetite is of committee. Councillor Pension, Councillor Duff.
Yeah, look, we talk about quarterly reviews and that. If we leave it there, we can review it. If we take it back to 480, 470, it's a target. Throw a challenge at 480, 470, yeah?
Councillor Duff.
I'm keen to support the mayor on this one, and also the general manager. We're doing all the Works of Queensland. I think it's an opportunity. I think we have to make savings. We have to try and be brave and take some risks and sort of call for efficiencies. And I think that at some point we have to, make some tough calls. And so I'm supporting the mayor in making the full cuts.
Okay, I think the majority view is probably, without speaking to Councillor Jones, that the 480 is probably sort of where the committee is sort of feeling at this stage. The 480 plus the 80, which would be 560, all up, including your contractors. Pete, is anyone particularly against that? Leave that there. Oh, 80, 250, sorry, Mark. Yeah. Oh, 80 neat, yep. Round that one off. 250, I'll take whatever I can get. I get like that when I'm at the races. Okay, so that's that one. With electricity, look, we've had situations where a lot of the electricity budgets that have been asked for haven't been, there's no actuals to confirm that that's what our power bills are. We've actually done an analysis and we've drilled into the ledger, and we've found that in many cases, the right up until the end of May has been paid, or even in some cases, the June account's already gone in. So in some cases, we're actually 12 months done and dusted, yet we're still asking for more funding for electricity. So we've gone through and looked at the actuals year to date and done those adjustments based on what is in those line items for the codings to electricity, and that's what we come up with. So Peter, unless you can find where I'm wrong, or where the finance have checked my numbers, if we've got something wrong, please tell us, but that's what it seems like to me.
no, I think I'm comfortable with these. These were just, and I think Selena had to do this adjustment because this year we tried put all the budgets of electricity and all of the previously electricity was budgeted across every business unit, and so everyone paid little bits and had these little buckets everywhere. So this was really just a probably consolidation that needed to happen. So yeah, I think that, and we have had a number of savings in electricity with the energy market we went to and that. So yeah, it's a bit hard to argue. I think that Selena's done the escalation out of these, so I think that, yeah, these were just work in progress that had to happen. So, yeah, I think they are real savings, these ones.
Thank you, Peter. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is excellent work. This is definitely the kind of work that we need to continue progressing. I can see, while some of these amounts are only small, like, $1,000 here and $1,000 there, some of them $15,000, $70,500. It all adds up. So yeah, I just wanted to congratulate you and the finance team on actually really looking into those electricity accounts. Certainly, I think that is just an indication of more work to be done over the next 12 months. But if that's a much truer representation of what we're actually spending, and we're confident that that's what's in our ledger and that's what we're spending, I think that's great to see those little adjustments, and certainly the bigger one there add up. So well done.
Anyone else that wants? Councillor Henson.
Oh, yeah, just the top line, electricity, the current budget's 17,000, adjustment of 88 is, you've got 26. But then as we go down the lines, we've got 98, 65, 656 to 60,000. Is that top line correct? Sorry, not the top line, the second one, 17,000. So you're increasing that to 26,
That's
not
correct.
decreasing it, whereas all the others are decreasing.
Yeah, that's correct, because that's how the actuals are trending. That one.
Oh, that one was
That one
out, came
actually
out?
didn't have enough budget, so I put it back
Okay,
in.
yep.
Yep.
Yep, no, that's $103,000 or $5,000 worth there, so is that correct, roughly? Yep. Gee, stop chewing your fingernails, Selena.
Do we have planning? Yeah, so planning. We did planning. Good. Yeah, thanks, Mark. I'm pleased we greened that out. Good suggestion. Thank you. Yes. Could have found a little savings, Mr. CEO. Okay. Righto, Peter. We might just let you continue. Anything else on communities that you wanted to bring to the attention of the committee before we wrap that one up? Okay, so Mr. CEO, do we now go to formulate a motion?
If we receive your op budget and then with the amendments as detailed.
Yeah, actually, I might go through. Yeah, I didn't realise you wanted to. I thought you were going to keep going through, but I was just trying to run these through. As you were going, sort of doing the adjustments. So, this was the budget change when we come through. So these columns here, I've just added those in. Apart from the 104 for electricity, whatever it was, 104,000 or something. So those changes is another 423 thousand, which will come back into the budget from those changes. It was just sort of probably showing it as we go along. So the budget change in this area. Lost my body.
Peter, there's no changes to what we workshop that councillors need to be aware of since the workshop in this document here? It's all the same? Okay. Thank you.
That was the resulting where we got to, and so these are the additional changes.
Get a motion up and, sorry, Selena.
Saying it looks like your total changes were 255.05 down. Oh, hang on. Yeah, hang on. I'm making sure I've got all your yellow bits.
It's not. Mr. Mayor, just I think in alliance with the other motions we've put or recommendations we've put forward here, I'd certainly like to recognise the savings that we've captured through this workshop process, so that at the end, I hope through all these budget committees we can kind of go back and see where we have made those savings. It's just my suggestion there.
Yeah, good suggestion, councillor. While we're waiting for the calculations to be done, it would be nice to be able to demonstrate the fruits of our labours for the hours that we've put in to this over the last couple of months. Everyone's put in right across the organisation. Yeah, thank you. Could I suggest that we break for afternoon tea and we come back and we can resolve this? Give Peter some time to just clarify his numbers. And so I now move that we adjourn for afternoon tea and return at 3:45 p.m. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Shoemaker, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, we'll reopen the meeting. Thank you. Well, okay. I'll now move that we resume the meeting. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Pension. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Meeting reopened. So we're at 6.1, the community's budget, and I think we're probably at the point of putting forward a motion to recommend such to council. We might just get that up. Thank you, Linnell. Okay, so we have the that there now. General Manager May, do we need to make reference to adjustments, or have they now been done in the budget documents that Selena has?
I know we've just done the adjustments. We will have to do them in the ledger at some stage, but yeah, we've just done the tally up of those adjustments that were made.
Yep. So we simply make reference to the fact be endorsed with adjustments as
amended,
determined, or what are your thoughts there, Mr. CEO? As amended? As amended. Do you want to put the value in there? To the value of? 464,000 and $408. Okay, do we have a move for such? Yep, Councillor Shoemaker, seconder. Councillor Duff, thank you. Speakers for or against? Those in favour?
Oh, no.
No, Speaker, Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just thinking in relation to that maintenance budget, maybe we try to claw back a little bit more out of that maintenance budget with the list of works for Queensland and the opportunities to do some of that maintenance. Maybe we take that. I'm not comfortable with the full recommendation of 100, but maybe we try to take that to 450 and see how we track.
Okay, process, Mr. CEO?
Well, you would. Could we leave that one for the first quarter, because we've got rates and everything else to do this RV. You don't have a committee meeting next week, so we really need to get something, I mean, in council's hands, but I just think given where we're at, we've pulled nearly another $500,000 out. There is, and when we get to the consolidated numbers we've pulled, Selena, well, I'm going to steal your thunder. Well, we pulled out another substantial amount out of on costs. Is that the correct term for it? 355,000 has come out of there, so we pulled it down. And probably, if I can answer, Mayor raised a point before, if I can answer it in a positive, and just was going to jump in before, but while the debate was on, actually, the one nice thing is it's in unison with the organisation and the councillors. Everyone's looking to where we can save. So, which is happy to have the discussion about maintenance, but maybe if we leave that one for first quarter, so well at least until we get the consolidated numbers together, and then you can have a look at the whole picture. Because I just think, yeah, time's of an essence, and I believe some councils may have to go this afternoon. So I just need to lock down a number so we can have a capital discussion. Anyway, in your hands.
Your thoughts, Councillor Shoemaker? Are you happy with that, or would you like to proceed?
Yeah, I didn't think it was a major change, but certainly if the chamber would rather we leave that for the first quarter, I'm happy. But yeah, I do think it is an area I will be drilling in on closely based on those capital discussions we have and the opportunity to use that funding more for projects based on their need rather than their want. So yeah, I guess I'd probably rather see it reflected in there now, but I understand we are running out of time. In saying that, though, I do feel this is the priority for our council. So, yeah, with these budget workshops, I've got small kids at home, and I have been clearing every single Wednesday afternoon for these. So that's I understand, but I do think we need to get this done. So, yep, willing to let it fly for this time, but we'll be looking for that in the first quarter, definitely.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Okay, so we've got, where are we at? We've got it moved and seconded. No one else wishes to speak from the floor. We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, well, now we're on to the rates budget, and then we'll come back to the final item, which is the comprehensive income statement. And I've got a few other things on the spreadsheet there, which will be addressed, I think, in that item, Mr. CEO.
Councillor, too, and certainly wasn't disagreeing with you there before. Linnell, can we just drop a line in there that the maintenance, yeah, just a maintenance, just as a resolved, so it's not lost that, what do we call it, Peter? The maintenance budget is reviewed in line with the first quarter. Property maintenance is reviewed in line with first quarter. Then that way it's not lost. Yeah,
Just wait for Linnell to get that as a footnote. And thank you, Mr. CEO. That's great. So we'll now move on to 6.2, which is the rates budget. And General Manager Jarvis, we might allow your team to take us through that if they could. Thank you.
Mayor.
Thank you. We're in your hands. Thank you, Daryl.
So, councillors, we might just quickly review what we went through on Friday. If you recall, we're looking at general rates. I've gone away and done some extra work now to give us a complete picture. But just very quickly, remember, we're coming into the third and final year of valuation averaging. So not everyone, or everyone should now be on the full value of their valuation. There's a few properties still to be capped. There were 17 in this current financial year, planning on looking at 11 or slightly less in this coming financial year. We've gone away and looked at a 1% increase in general rates. If you recall, the 0%, if we left the increase at 0% increase, due to the effects of valuation averaging, we're still looking at a roughly 2.16% increase in revenue. With a 1% increase in the rates in the dollar and the minimum general rates, that gives you a 3.18% increase, or just over $1 million. So up on the screen, it's very hard to see, I'm really sorry. I might just try and blow that up a little bit. I've gone too far. Was it shift? Sorry? Control. There we are. It's still not much better. Yeah, okay. Yep, right, yep. So there you can see, yeah, the increase is just over $1 million, 3.18%. And we looked at the effects on different categories. And you can see here that all up, the number of properties that have an increase of greater than $500, looking at about 235 properties. I'll just flick over now to, just bear with me. Sorry guys, I'm not used to using a laptop like this. I'm used to a mouse. I'm old fashioned. You're a good man. We got one up the top. Oh.
Susan shut it down. You hit that. Hit cancel. Cancel. Don't shut my stuff down.
Okay, beautiful. There we are. That's much better. So I've then gone away and added in all of our proposed values for all of the utility charges and done a calculation for all of the different properties. And this is a summary of what it looks like. So can everyone see that okay on their screens? Yep. So you've got 74 properties that are looking at a decrease of greater than $50 for the year. And as you work your way across the right-hand side of the screen, there's 556 where there's no change, 2,356 properties with an annual increase of between 0 and 20. And over the far right-hand side, there's 94 properties that are looking at an increase of greater than $1,000 for the year. And just a couple of things for councillors to bear in mind. I haven't included water consumption charges in these calculations, and all of the reductions are due to the properties where previously we have had multiple first pedestal charges. You might recall that we were looking at changing with the way we were charging sewage pedestals. I've recalculated those so that they come in line with all the other properties now, so they get charged one first pedestal and the additional first pedestals are getting charged the additional pedestal rate. So there's a slight reduction there. What I'm going to do now, again, on this screen here, we've got some more statistics about the number of properties that have an increase at 1%. You've got the average change for each category, the largest change, and then as I work my way across, again, you've got the breakup there of number of properties and the increase that they are expecting. And you might recall, councillors, that you were very keen to find out about pensioners. You were interested to find out what the average increase or how pensioners were going to be affected by all of this. So we've gone away and done this for you. So this area here is where you need to look at. So for each of the different rate categories, I've calculated what the average change is, the smallest change, the largest change, and then again broken it up into the different categories for the dollar increase or decrease that they are looking at receiving. So that's all a bit hard to read, I know. I'm sorry it's so small, but there's a lot of information in those screens. But what I might just do is, these are the interesting stats. I haven't given you individual names of people who are affected, which is quite appropriate. But particularly for the pensioners, I've listed the top couple of hundred just so that you can see some trends. Now, you might recall again from our workshop on Friday that the category that was going to be affected most by any general rate increase was the rural primary production category, and that was because they have the largest or the highest valuations, and because of the increases in valuation that came about in the revaluation 3 years ago, they are the category that is experiencing the most number of increases in this final year due to averaging. So as we scroll down that list, you can see that there are a significant number of properties in that category, even pensioners, who are looking at significant increases.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to confirm the purpose, the reason for those significant increases is because of the last year of the averaging of the valuation. So this year will be the full year since that 3-year review that every rateable property in the South Burnett will be rated, their general rate will be calculated on their full valuation, where in the previous 3 years it's been a third, 2/3. We're now at the end of that, it will be the entire amount. Have I got that right? So even though council's
Absolutely right.
Yeah, council's looking at a 1% general rate rise here, in line with CPI, but the I had 2.18% written down here, 2.16% adjustment is due to those changes in valuation. Yes.
That's absolutely correct, Councillor, yes.
And Councillor, just to add to that, we've chosen not to have a revaluation done this year either.
That's correct, General Manager, but we do need to keep in mind that we are due for one, and I would expect that the revaluations will be very, very different to because of the property market and the way things are selling and the values of everything. So we've just worked our way through one, and we've got another one on our way in probably 12 months.
So, councillors, that was pretty much all I was going to present. Just to let you know, just recapping on our workshop on Friday, the increase for a 0% increase in general rate still yields a 2.16% increase in revenue due to the effects of the valuation averaging, and a 1% increase in general rate will give you a 3.18% increase in revenue of, in total, just over $1 million. And there will be a lot of pensioners affected, and particularly people in the rural primary production category, again, because they are the ones who have the largest valuations, or some of the largest, not entirely the largest, but some of the largest valuations in the region, and they were affected significantly with the revaluation 3 years ago.
Thank you for that presentation, Darryl, and for the vast amount of work you've gone through to compile a spreadsheet. Pretty hard to navigate through it, but a lot harder to put it together. So thanks very much for the work you've done there. Gives us a really good understanding that even the increase has been primarily, the increase in valuations have been primarily on those farming properties, and there are a number of pensioners who hold those farming properties who are going to be affected in those percentages. A lot of the work that I've done in that last broad sweep of the budget with the finance team was to not only try and reduce the deficit as far as possible without affecting the delivery of core services, but was also to try and perhaps open up the scope to mitigate rates rises on our community. And I've been thinking long and hard about Councillor Shoemaker's comments last Friday that rate rises can be an economic inhibitor sometimes, to some extent. And on that basis, Darryl, I just wanted to confirm, if we were to go to 0%, council would still get 2.16% increase in the total take, in other words, in income from general rates. And the figure you gave us the other day was $694,743 before discounts and before discounts and remissions and concessions. Is that figure still correct, Darryl, from your latest analysis, the 694,743 at 2.16% on a zero rise? Just wanted to confirm that data. So in light of the savings that we've found, and there may be potential to find some more once we look at the comprehensive income statement, I'm just wondering if there's any consideration from council to entertain my views around perhaps considering a 0% rate rise in light of the fact that a lot of our residents are going to be affected by that valuation, and we still will get 2.16%. I'm keen to hear from the committee on your thoughts on that. But before we do, Councillor Duff, you've had your light on, so I might just let you speak or question.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say exactly the same thing, Mr. Mayor. The 2.16, we're already getting that percentage increase, and I just think that the fact that we were planning to get like just CPI, and now it's been revealed that we've already getting that 2.16, that we would be, to me, more or less double dipping if we took the 1% on top of that, because we've been made aware, and also the fact that the pensioners and the rural people are being affected the most, or a large percentage of them are. So I just think I'd like to see us hopefully have similar to what the Mayor said, to look at just taking that 2.16% that we're going to get in any case.
Look, I know, and I know consideration of a 0% rate rise comes with criticism from certain corners of the community. Some people think that it's irresponsible to go with 0%, and I've been criticised for that for last year's decision. But look, I suppose it's a matter for council to consider in light of the fact that we have got the 2.16% from the rate rise. I worked out, Darryl, that after the 10% of 85%, which is the discount, and Selena, the pensioner remission concessions and the remissions, that it's about almost exactly $300,000 after discount adjustments are done for. So that's 0% versus 1%. So the gross difference is about 330,000, 328,000, but after discounts it comes back to 300,000 in loss of revenue if we were to drop from 1% to 0%, if there was appetite for that. So I just thought we could go around the room and have that discussion. We have modelled on 1% at this stage. Is there any appetite for considering 0%? Or would council like to put, anyone like to put forward any other options at this stage so that we can allow Selena to lock that in for the draft budget at least? Councillor Jones?
I'm comfortable with what the discussion we had. I'm comfortable with 1%. That's just the way I feel, and I understand where you're saying, and we worked very hard to get savings right across the region and for all different reasons. And yes, we're lowering our deficit and all that sort of stuff, and that's our goal. We want to try and get out of deficit by the end of this term. And look, I'm prepared to take criticism, and whatever they want to call me, I'm happy with the 1% rise, a general rate.
Just go around. Any others? Councillor Pension?
Well, I'm rural and we're the ones going to get hit with this. But, yeah, look, the conversations I've had with rural people were pretty excited about a 0% last year, but they're expecting a rate rise this year. They're well aware that, this council has to function and function in the best it can to deliver the services we've got to deliver. The rural sector's on the back of an incredible spike in the cattle market, which is, just, there's no comparison. We didn't ever think we'd see it. We've gone through the worst drought in 150 years. Yeah, I'm personally, take my council hat off, I would expect a rate rise. I would personally expect a rate rise. Put my council hat back on, and we're going to yield at 3%, 3.18, is that correct? Yep. I stated this time last year, that I was concerned where this council would be in 4 years' time, and I'm still concerned about that. But I think we've done an incredible job from being thrown in the deep end last year as a new council to bring a budget down, and we were thrown in the deep end to work to where we've got to this year, to where I think we can get to next year with the team that is behind us here. And I think the work that's been done already these last few months has been incredible. I mean, just today to find the savings in electricity and that, and I'm sure we can work towards, I think delivering the services on delivering rateable properties or rate increases over the next couple of years that our general public and the rural sector and everybody can, we're going to cop flack over it, of course we are, but to have a 0% last year, to go 0% again this year is a seriously big call under the environment where everything, commodities, trying to be able to source things, be it labour, be it just that, commodities. I'm comfortable with a 1% on both sides and both hats that I wear.
Councillor Freloff.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm comfortable with the 1% rate rise. Also, I live rural res, and my husband asked me the other night, "Were the rates going to go up?" And I said, "Well, we're still working on that." And he goes, "Well, they didn't last year," and he's the same. He was on the same opinion that he believes that the rates have to go up this year, and he'll probably be shocked by his mates at work by it. But if we don't start looking at the general rate and at least putting it up, covering the CPI, I'm concerned down the track we've got a lot of catching up to do if we keep it at a 0 rate increase. So I'm happy with the 1% rate rise.
Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did just have a question just in relation to all of the modelling that we've done. We have modelled 2%. Am I true in?
I think you've got a spreadsheet there, haven't you, Daryl, for 2%?
So the stuff that was produced in the income statement originally was 2% on general take. This is 1% on your cent in the dollar. So that's why, so you 0% on the cent in the dollar is yielding the same amount as what your 2% on general take was doing, whereas this is actually 1%, but it's on the cent in the dollar opposed to the whole take.
Okay, so just so I can confirm, and my apologies, but just want to have this right. So 2.1% on total take due to the valuation, and then we're proposing 1% change on the cent in the dollar to reflect CPI. Yep, I've got that right.
So in summary, that would mean that if the committee wants to go with 1%, that means that we would collect an extra 3.18%, which would be 3 times the CPI.
But we're talking 2.18 on the general take and then 1% on the cent in the dollar, or it's 3.18 across the board?
There's a little bit of incrementation that kicks in on 1%. So
Okay.
at 0%, we would pick up 2.16%. And I suppose the inflation is reflected in the valuations as a land tax. And at 1%, we would pick up an extra 3.18%. So it's very close, but 0 gives us an extra 2.16, 1 gives us an extra 3.18. I guess after doing that work on over the last 2 days and finding those savings now, thank you, General Manager O'May, and soon to be General Manager Meehan, we hopefully will be a little bit more there, that we may be in a position where we can start to provide some mitigation of the impact of rates rises on our environment. Look, I'm keen to pursue it if we can. I mean, CPI is at 1.1%. We are going to get 2.1% at 0. I personally would like to see us seriously consider that, because in analysis that I've done against other councils, I do think that because of our population, it's apples and oranges again, but gee, I'd like to think we can grow population. And as Councillor Shoemaker articulated the other day, we're in this vicious cycle where if we keep putting rates up, we're not getting people to move here. But we need more rateable properties so that we can mitigate rates rises. So we've got to get that balance right. And I'm just wondering, with the savings that we've found, whether 3.18 is a bit too much of a take this year. But But anyway, keen to hear what others thought. That's just my personal view. Back to you, Councillor Shoemaker. Thank you.
I'm certainly hearing you. And I think last year the 0% really was around the uncertainty of COVID, and like Councillor Pension said, being a new councillor in the seat and very much thrown in the deep end, and knowing that those valuations were still being felt across the community, I was comfortable with that at this point in time. After working through this budget and extensively, and certainly finding savings, I can see there is so much more work to be done, and I'm excited about the next 12 months, to be honest. I think we've really got some great opportunities to make a real difference in our council, and I really appreciate the support of our senior leadership team and working with this council team to get us there. I don't think a 0%, I don't want to see us get a culture of 0%, because I'm very mindful of Councillor Froloff and the work the previous council did in bringing our rates up to a level where this council could be financially sustainable and viable. And I don't doubt that was extremely tough. I'm wondering if we could come to some sort of compromise and maybe round that 3.18 to 3 flat, which would be a 2.18 on the general take, but then I think a 0.82 general rate rise. So it's less than CPI, but it's still something to keep us tracking. Just wanted to put that in the chamber and see what people are thinking. I'm probably not supportive of a 0% rise. I do feel 1% in the current environment. I'm hearing everyone's conversation is reasonable based on what I've seen, and I know people trusted us all to be here and make the best decisions we can with the information we have and to the best judgment and best interests of the community. It's not an easy decision, but I'm wondering if maybe we can come to some kind of compromise and round that at a flat 3.
I might hand that over to Daryl. Selena, thoughts on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Rounding it to a flat 3 is difficult because, as you can see through that column BC, everyone goes up and down by a different percentage due to the valuation coming through. So to do a flat 3, you'd have to say what, you'd have to go, I guess, the total take 3% and then work backwards and adjust the cent and the dollars. It is very difficult. The other thing that I was going to suggest, which I don't know if it would or wouldn't help, is if I showed you a snapshot of where council was sitting and how much short you were for the capital funding at the moment, before you made any or gave any guidance on where you're going.
Yes,
if you'd like to see where we're actually sitting before you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, just conferred with our CEO. He thinks it's valuable in seeing the whole picture. Of course, Mark's done many of these budgets over many years, so I'll be guided by you, Mr. CEO. And absolutely, Selena, thank you. If you can bring that up, that'd be great.
So I'll just talk through this. Now, some of these numbers are changing as we speak, so I'll go back to the start. So in column B, this was our original budget, and I've broken it down per each of our departments. So you can see that was the $3.6 million was what our original budget deficit was last year. Currently in our ledger, as a starting point, we have this 3980. So that includes your 1%, because that's what we spoke about the other day. So we've gone ahead and put those changes in. So that's where we're sitting. So currently your depreciation for general operations is $15 million. So if we take off the deficit of your 3.9, sorry, on Gen Ops only, I'm going to Gen Ops. If we take off your deficit of your 6.5, you've only got $8.4 million to spend on capital. That's all we have available unless we're going to eat into cash. So out of that 8.4, going back through your buildings, roads, parks, ICT, capital programs, what those guys or what those managers have worked off is a total of 8.8 mil. And you've also got to factor in your principal payments from that area. So currently we're 1.9 mil short, which means that when the capital programs come in on Thursday and Friday, we need to unfund an additional $1.9 million to make sure that we're not dipping into any cash reserves. So yep.
Just want to clarify for council. So you know how we talked about the deficit in depreciation, the 3 million in roads, that is not included in the cash spend there. So when you talk about the 8.8 million, that's us spending 6.8 million that we spent on roads last year, the year before, the year before, the year before. So it's keeping your current level of depreciation funded.
That's correct. This is already unfunding $4.4 million. So on top of your 4.4, we're chasing 1.9. Now, after we landed the structure, I had one of the officers go back and rebalance up all of your on costs to make sure that we had the correct percentages. The results of that is there's a savings of $355,000 when we apply the new on-cost rates that we can apply to next year's budget. So we've got 355 savings there. So in that scenario alone, so not taking into any of the Mayor's proposed changes yet, just the 355, we end at the 3.6. You have a 6.2 mil deficit in your general operations. So now we're chasing 1.676 mil. So then in this part here, I have gone through and added in this $355,000 savings, plus what the Mayor had proposed, and that was where we landed. So I've started changing, I've gone back through and I've been linking it as you change it. If I come back here, this was the original proposed changes in full, the 1.3 mil. So your deficit would have ended up at the 2.32 mil, which meant that you were chasing about 530,000 that you were a bit short in capital. So every time we decrease one of these changes here, this is going to increase. And so this is, I guess I wanted to show you this as a snapshot because when you go into capital discussions tomorrow, it's you need to understand that whatever program gets handed up, we are short. So someone has to unfund this amount of money, or we're paying for more things than we actually have. Yeah, does that make sense?
And the only bit that you're missing, it's excellent overview, Selena, but that first quarter we jumped to 4.5. So the original budget was 3.6, and we've worked over this 12 months to absorb now the FAGS component. I don't know what impact that has in the final numbers, but there's been a lot of work done over the 12 months to absorb that $1 million and take it back to the 3.6. So just as part of the background, but no, it's good.
Yep. Sorry? Well, that depends on how much this gets changed.
Oh, there's more adjustments to come yet too.
I'm at this at the moment, but I haven't done the other areas yet. So yeah, so we're back up to the 900 now after Pete's changes. So yeah, it was more of a summary to show you how it all links together and the impacts of the decisions that are made on the capital program.
Can I ask, you mentioned 355 in on-cost savings. That'll come in on this 21-22 budget, but we haven't had the chance to reflect. Are they reflected in these numbers at this point in time?
They're only reflected in these numbers in this here. So they're not reflected here. Then I've reflected it, and then I've reflected the 355 and your proposed changes to come up with where we would be if they were all accepted.
Right.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think based on the information that's before us, I think based on how much we've certainly squeezed the operation and the fact that some of the proposed changes we still have to revise and see where we could actually, if we could deliver on them. I think unfortunately this council is in no position other than to accept the 1% general rate rise to reflect CPI. We certainly can't have an impact like that And unfortunately, as Selena has said, someone has to pay. So it's bittersweet being that with all of the work that's been done, and I really do value how hard everyone has worked. But I can see that this is the responsible thing to do. So I'm of the view it's responsible, and I'm satisfied with the 1% on CPI. Through you, Mr. Mayor. One other assumption I guess I will throw into this scenario is that I've assumed we have a certain amount of capital grants as well, and I've tried to look at depreciation only. So I've assumed that if we had, say, $5 million in capital grants coming in, this PPE would go up by $5,000, and there's a cost neutral between capital grants coming in and capital grants going out. So if you had capital grants coming in and it was funding some of this, that would be a bit different. And if some of those capital grants meant that council had to co-contribute to it, that would be a greater expense than capital grants as well. So that they're the things that can throw it out a little bit.
Have we factored in here that we're getting an extra 400,000 in LRCI, which will hit 6 months of next financial year? Or aren't we getting 2.3 million over what was currently 1.9?
I've assumed that if we spend another 2.3 or whatever the capital number is, you're going to get in, you're actually going to increase your capital program by that amount. So
Well, what if we don't? What if we say, well, we'll maintain our capital program, won't increase it, and we'll use that money for renewals? And because what I'm keen to see us do here is not just start to spend more because we've got it. What I'm keen to see us do, and I know you're all sick of me arguing due diligence on finance, around KTP and around Blackbutt and all that. I know I'm a broken record. But what I've got to say is that when we make decisions on capital expenditure, I really feel we have to think about, should we be investing that in renewals? And a lot of KTP is renewals and a lot of Blackbutt's renewals, and I think that's great, but we've got to make sure we pin down what is that number on renewals. And moving forward, the more we can use external grant funding to do renewals, the better off we're going to be. And I can't help but think that that's a big part of the answer for us in funding our CapEx. And if we can then say we're going to get 2.3 from the feds in LRCI, let's use it for renewals. We're going to get, we've got 5.6 coming for Works for Queensland. Let's try and use the vast majority of it for renewals. So let's not increase our capital expend on nice to haves. Let's do the stuff that has to be done. And let's be financially prudent with that. And then we might not see these big figures that we're seeing in red at the bottom line. I hope I'm talking sense, accountants, but that's the way I'm seeing the world at the moment, without backtracking. I don't want to have conversations about what's gone on in the past, but moving forward, can we at least focus on the future? Can we focus on renewals and funding renewals from external sources, not just increasing our CapEx every time we get a bit more money from the government? Because at the moment, we're spending more than we've got that we can raise. So we've got to recalibrate that. Anyone have any other views, comments on that? Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that's definitely where this council has to head. Unfortunately, when we get, and I saw that last year when we got grant funding, you know, we sat in this room and we talked about all the things we'd like to do, and then we tried to find out the things that council needed to do, and we tried to balance them up. I think we need more multi-criteria analysis when it comes to analysing what projects we actually choose to fund with the funding we receive. And to be honest, while I'm hearing you in that, and that will make a difference, I can see that from all the work we've done. My concern is still, even if we do that, I can't see through our operational budget, unless we get very drastic, which I know I talked about the other day and no one was really keen on that, with our services and our assets. I think there's work to be done in that capital funding space, absolutely, with the grants and that we receive and the asset management plans that we have, and certainly how we determine our projects. But I still don't think at this point in time, and I wish it were different, it would be enough to equate to a 0% general rate rise. I wish it were otherwise, but I just think noting what we've pulled out of our operation already and how much everyone has gotten on board and said, well, we'll suck it and see, a bit like last year, but probably much more heightened. And considering where we originally were in that, in the number that council put forward for a potential deficit, we've come a long way, but there's a lot more work to be done. So I don't want to make assumptions around capital funding at the moment. I think the 1% at this point in time would help us turn that, ensure our sustainability and continue that work.
Hey, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just from the past, and what I believe is that we usually get the CPI increase, or the 2% or whatever we choose, on the overall bucket. So in this case, you're actually talking about a 3.18% rate rise, not a 1% rate rise. That's how I'm seeing it, because that's the percentage that we're getting, the 2.16 in any case. And so we've always just gone 2% or whatever we've picked as the rate rise on that figure. So because there's been an adjustment with the rate and the dollar, we're getting 2.16 in any case. So I would only look at it myself as a 3.18% increase, because that's an increase of the overall figure revenue, like we were going to get as rate from rates. Is that correct?
In the past, what we've done is exactly that. We've worked off last year's revenue. Council's come up with, or whatever the percentage increase that was suggested, so a 2% increase, then we would go away and work up and adjust all of those rates in the dollars to come up with a 2% increase for each of those individual categories. Now, based on the discussions that we've had in the last 12 months with trying to bring the rates in the dollar closer together, that's a very difficult thing to do, because you impact, someone's got to pay. So, and it takes a lot of time and effort to try and calculate those figures so that it's fair. And we could probably workshop that for weeks on end. But this particular year, because we've got the last year of averaging, we felt let's just calculate purely on adjusting the minimum rates and the rate in the dollar, and this is the final result that we've been looking at. It's much easier for staff to do the calculations and to come up with your final results just by changing the rate in the dollar by a flat 2% and the minimum rate by the 2%, or whatever figure council comes up with. Much more resource savvy. Mr. Mayor?
So, yeah, thanks, Darryl, for explaining that. So when we go to the report, we're required by regulation, and Mr. CEO showed us the section of the regulation the other day, to report in our budget statement to the community what the increase in our rates are going to be as a percentage. Please correct me if I'm wrong, staff, but when we report that, we have to report the increase as a percentage when we include, as Mark's shown us, our utilities. So we have already signed up for a water consumption increase. We've signed up for a waste increase and a waste levy increase, as well as a water access increase. So let's say, for example, for argument's sake, let's say that came to 2%, and the total take from 1% goes up by 3.18%. Are we then saying that we've increased the rates by 5.18%? Am I reading it correctly? So when we add the general rate factor, are we adding the 1%, or are we adding the 3.18%?
Can I the total change in rateable income has changed by 5% if you use those numbers. So the total value of the change of rate income across utilities in general has changed by 5%. General rates has had a 1% change applied to it, which has resulted in a total take of 3% in change of total volume. Now that's where the valuations kick in. So that's how I think it through in my head. But yeah, if that's the question.
Yeah, that's the question. Thanks, Mr. CEO. So
if we use, well, I won't say made up numbers, but we use the example numbers the Mayor offered. If utilities was going to net us, and because not everyone pays utilities, So if utilities was going to net us another, say, 2% on the total take, and the general rate nets 3% on the total take, so not every category will be affected by 3%. As you saw in those other numbers, they would vary. So the total change in rateable income the council received from one financial year to the next would be a 5% difference on that total take. 1% is applied to the general rate, and then whatever the utility charges are. So it's that I think it's that variable effect, for want of a better word, that the rates have. And this, again, without repeating old conversations, everyone looks for a single number now, a headline number. Rates have gone up what? And so you can say rates have gone up 1%, but Mayor may be unfortunate, he's gone up 5%. I might be lucky, I might be one of the ones that have gone down 1%. So even though we've taken 1%, the average change may be 1% or whatever the average is. There's no consistency anymore in the categories. You can't, well, you can, but it's difficult to say to the media, for example, oh, we're going to take 1% is true. That's what we've, if that's the number council settles on, that's what we've changed the rate in the dollar by, CPI. But the total adjustment in the total take the council gets over utilities in general will be different.
So the figure that we would be reporting in the budget media pack and to the community and to the media where we asked would be the 5 or 6%. No, but we're required by regulation to report the total take increase, aren't we, under that regulation? In the revenue statement, yeah. So last year, for example, we reported that was 1.79%, even though it was 0, because we had the utilities factor. Now, I think you'll find your utilities are going to be at least 2 or not, if not close to 3%, because we have increased our water access, we have increased our water rates, we've increased our waste and our waste levy, and from the numbers that have gone into water and sewerage, extra revenue, I would suggest to you that it's going to be up in those sorts of numbers. I'm just putting that out there. I'm not wanting to argue in favour of that. What I'm just saying is when we report the total take increase for council, we will be reporting that sort of percentage. So let's not get confused about that, Mark. Yeah, thank you. Righto, sorry, back to you, Councillor Duff.
So now I am confused because I was of the opinion that what Darryl has said is that he's put the rate in the dollar up by 2%. The actual you altered the dollar values and then you put the overall up by 1%.
So the valuations will increase, if that's what you mean. So the valuations will be increased to their full value for the first time in 3 years, but we have changed the minimum rate and the rate in the dollar by 1% for each category.
Can I just add?
About the figure, councillor, that we have to report as prescribed by regulation, and that's going to be our total take, which could be 5 or 6% on these numbers. Just making council a committee aware of that. Selena?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The only the issue we have with the working out what the total take is, and then saying you add 2% to that, and then we've got to adjust the cent in the dollar back so that you only get that 2%. Is that you're not allowing the valuations to come through because you're manipulating the cent in the dollar to come back up with your total take, whereas the way that Darryl's presented it with changing the cent in the dollar, it's allowing the actual valuations to come through and do what the valuations should be doing, is how I see it.
Yeah, thanks, Selena. Okay, well, I guess we're probably at the stage where we want to get something under the vote. So we've got a recommendation there that the committee recommends to council that the general rate increase by 1% on the cent in the dollar, with a related discount being adjusted to reflect the change in revenue. Do we have a mover for such? Councillor Jones. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Pension. Speakers for or against before we wrap this up? Councillor Duff.
Well, I'm against it because I think that we already are getting the 2.16% in the overall increase in the take, and that's the way I've always seen it as what we've been trying for. So I think that we're actually taking a 3.18% increase. So I'm supporting of just leaving it as 0.
Okay. Anyone else? Speakers for or against? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've just been reviewing some of the figures that we've, the challenges we've presented with all the other stories that have come forward in terms of ageing water infrastructure, ageing sewage infrastructure, ageing, waste. And I come back to, I'm hearing you, Councillor Duff, and by no means certainly I do not want to see an impact on our local ratepayers and our economy, but the reality is we have waste management facilities from one end of the region to the other that no one's willing to consider closing or shifting. We've got library services that are functioning 24/7, regardless of their utilisation rates, and we want fair and equitable levels of service regardless of whether somebody walks in the door or they're not. We want the same level of service from one end of our region to the other, which, don't get me wrong, I'm not against, but we can't afford it. That's the reality. And I don't want to make this political at all. The reality is we have to have a regional focus and have to accept that to provide that level of service from one end of our region to the other, it costs us. And it costs us more and it hurts us more because certainly we've got less ratepayers than some of those larger councils, and we've got ratepayers certainly with the tree change that have moved to the South Burnett from coastal areas and expecting the same levels of service, levels that we cannot deliver on. And while I'm hearing you, and I understand your position, I equally understand that unless we make some drastic changes, and I'm willing, if you're willing, I'm absolutely willing, pull out that OPEX budget, I'll get my red pen and we'll work on it. Absolutely, no worries. I signed up for that, I knew it'd be tough, absolutely. But no one's suggesting that. And so we can't maintain our current levels, that's what our staff have said, regardless of how much we have squeezed them, and we have, every single dollar. We can't maintain our current levels of service without increasing our general rate. That is what is before us right this second. And I think we've got enormous amount of work in that advocacy space. I see Bundaberg's already come out and said their agricultural ratepayers are struggling with their rate hikes because of valuation increases. There is more work to be done in this space. We need to confront the reality a small regional community like ours faces. We are just not big enough. So, by all means, if you're proposing that we go to zero, and I'm hearing you, then I expect a much stronger approach to cutting cost and cutting service, which I don't think any of us want to do. But if that's what you're proposing, that's what we're signing up for here with 0%, then I fear the impact on our ratepayers will be bigger than a 1% increase.
Okay, I'll give those who haven't had a chance to speak to this the opportunity to do so, and then as the mover, Councillor Jones will get the right of reply to those speaking against his motion. So anyone else wish to speak before we go back to Councillor Jones? No? Look, I'd just like to clarify some of your statements, Councillor Shoemaker. I'm not going to support this. As you know, I'm a numbers man. Councillor Henshaw, you say you're a rural man. I'm a numbers man and have been for 3 decades. This is my business. $300,000 is the difference between 0% and 1%. We have a lot of work to do on this budget, and I still believe that this council can design a pathway out of deficit within this term. I think we've demonstrated with the savings that we've found already, and I believe there are more savings to make that will more than counter for the $300,000. For example, we have work to do in relation to our contractors on our cattle facilities at Coolabunga. We talked today about the work to be done on our biosecurity. Councillor Pension has indicated there are savings to be found there. We have work to be done on our property maintenance, as we talked about. Perhaps there are savings to be found there. We are taking an extra 3.18% from our residents, and we have the option of changing the way in which we do our CapEx allocations by using more of our external funding to do greater levels of renewals and therefore mitigating the impact on our cash. That being the case, I'm confident that this council can be financially sustainable with a 0% rate in the dollar rise in 21-22 by receiving the 2.1.6% take, which is double the CPI, and alongside that, the additional revenue we're collecting from increases to water consumption, to water rates, to waste and waste levy, alongside sewerage, potential of sewerage increases yet to come. So that being the case, with the savings that we have found, I am confident that this is doable. My view is that there are more savings to be found, and I do believe, Councillor Shoemaker, that they can be found without cutting services to our community. I believe we need to focus, again, more intently on our overheads and look at how we can become more efficient at the business that we do, as every business has to do. I'll conclude with those comments and now hand to Councillor Jones as the mover to speak, have the final right of reply. Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As I said, I'm comfortable to put this forward and move it. I'm comfortable with the 1%, 3.18. I think it's about 1.1. We're talking about CPI, and it also helps to absorb the 2.5 EBA agreement for staff. So when you put it into perspective, we're still going to fall short with the 1% increase. We're not quite going to cover all that. It's going a long way, but so yeah, I'm more than happy. And if we can produce a 1% rate rise going into the future every single year and reduce our deficit down to a surplus by the end of this term, I'm more than comfortable. And like I said previously, certain aspects of the community won't like it, and I'm prepared to stand up and have the conversations, but I fully support, like I say, I'm moving the 1% increase.
Okay, let's go to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Okay, so motion's been carried. Councillor Froloff, Jones, Shoemaker and Henson in favour. Councillor Duff and Otto against. Right, thank you. Well, let's move on to 6.3, which is the comprehensive income statement for 21-22. Selena, did you want to start on that for us? Thank you.
Yes, I can, Miss. Sorry.
Sorry, yes, Councillor.
Can I be excused, Mr Mayor? I've got a function I've got to get to in Blackbutt committed.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Jones. Do we need to just note that in the? We'll simply note it. Yep. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Okay, all the best, and we'll see you soon. Selena.
Yes.
Comprehensive income statement.
Yes,
Thank
through
you.
you, Mr Mayor. Before we go to the income statement, there was two more items in rating that we wanted to address. One of them was the helicopter. I'll just hang on. Can you let me display Linnell at all? There's something you got to press. Okay, thank you. So we had a brief discussion about this the other day. This is the community rescue and evacuation levy that we currently have. At the moment it's $5. So Darryl and I had a look at this morning. There's approximately 17,565 rateable properties. Current charge is $5, so we collect the 87,825 and send that as a donation. If the proposed charge went to the $6, you'd collect the 105,390. So you'd be collecting an additional 17,565 for the helicopter rescue. So Darryl and I had a quick discussion about how we could lessen the impact on pensioners, because that was the discussion we had, I think, on the workshop. Now, because it's a separate charge, you can't put them out as separate. So we come up with, if you capped the $200 to $206 for the pensioner rebate, then that would be one option to do it. However, the issue we had with that is that the rest of your ratepayers would have to foot the $20,000 and $24,000 bill if you wanted to go that way. So it was up there for just as a touch on. We spoke about it the other day. I'd like to get the meeting report completed and through ready for your budget committee, but I need some direction on where this is going to land, I guess.
We might go to discussion on this. Any thoughts from councillors? Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, at this point in time, based on the conversation we've just had, I'm not supportive of increasing the amount. I think, as you said, the impact to our ratepayers is already high, and whilst I appreciate the conversation has been it is only $1, every dollar adds up. I'd also like to note, I know firsthand just how generous our community is when it comes to life flight sponsorship and support, and I've been to a number of fundraisers over my lifetime here in the South Burnett where we have raised significant money for that service. So at this point in time, I'd like to maintain it at the $5. Certainly maybe later down the track, but noting all the conversation that's been had, I'm not actually comfortable with increasing it at this point in time.
Okay, I might go around the room. Councillor Froloff.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm also supportive of leaving it at $5. And yeah, South Bennett's one of the biggest supporters of Life Flight. And they raise a fair bit of money, so I'd like to leave it at $5.
Councillor Pension.
Yeah, I'm very supportive of the $5. We can revisit this again next year, of course, so yeah, I'm happy with the $5.
Yep, yeah, I agree, 100%. Good on that. Thank you.
Okay, so looks as though it's pretty clear
Much
on that, Selena.
appreciated.
So looks like we
So
get-
I have one other item, and that is to do with the cent in the dollar for the solar farms. But I'll let Darryl talk to this one.
Yes, Selena advised me this morning that that last year it was noted that the decimal point was picked up in the wrong place for wind farms, and that those range of categories was changed. Traditionally, the wind farms and the solar farms have been at the same rate in the dollar, so the solar farms were not changed last year. They were kept at the same level, meaning they're 10 times the cents in the dollar amount than the wind farms. So just chasing some direction from council whether there is any objection to making them all the uniform rate in the dollar as they have been previously, or is there any discussion? Considering we have currently there are no properties in the wind category, and there are currently no properties in the solar farm category either.
Darryl, my memory of it was when the wind farm, definitely there was there was a discrepancy. Thankfully, the impact was mitigated because we didn't have anything in that category, but we certainly got the attention of certain parties. There was a fair bit of work done at that point in time, and I would have the reports from last year at looking at neighbouring councils, and I'm probably hesitant to change it for this 12 months, given there is no actual impact on a farm until we actually pull back those reports, because there was, there was comparisons in different categories and the impact, and there was a fair bit of work. I just have to dig up those reports. So, but anyway, yeah, given there's no one impacted, it's probably 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. But yeah, it would be whatever we do going forward would need that justification behind it. Probably that's a roundabout non-answer, but yeah, there was the solar farms were looked at as part of that wind farm discussion. I just recall that.
Okay, any further comments on that? Councillor Schumacher.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually would like to see us bring them up to be the same. Whilst there is no impact on anybody, I actually think they're both renewable energy sources. So I think wind farms and solar farms should be the same. They're both a renewable energy. And I think if we've made an error with a decimal point, we should fix it, because I'd hate to see one of those projects come forward and then have to have this awkward conversation about impact later on. So my view is I think they're generating sites. We currently charge other generating sites in the region. I think we need to be getting something solid in our system so that when those projects come forward, which I think they will, we're in a position to already have something on the table and be open and honest around what that's going to cost people. So that's my view. I think it has to be done now.
Does anyone have an opposing view? Okay, so there we go. Thank you, Daryl. Bring them into line would seem to be the feeling of the committee. Selena, now, second pedestal charges. We know you want to get on and get that draft budget put together before the 30th of June. As part of the comprehensive income statement, item 6.3, second pedestal charges. We had discussed at our workshop considering increasing from 28% to 34%. And then we would also, Councillor Shoemaker had asked us to remodel 31%. Have we got some information that we can provide at this stage?
So the models were sent around on Monday, I believe. Let me just find them. Yeah, come on, hamsters. Okay, so this was the model 17. So this was the increase going from 28 to 31% in year one, and from 31% to 34% in year two. So your cash, I guess the difference between the two models is how much your ending cash is in year 10. This model has your 8.475 mil, whereas your model 18, which was the 28 to 34% in year one, and then from 34 to 40% in year two, had your 9.943 mil. And I just put in here for you where the water was sitting with the deficit, so you could see that both models covered the water deficits and offset them. The only the reason why we were building cash and sewage, I guess, to touch on, is that you had a 15 mil Mergen water treatment plant in year 11. So that's why we were trying to get as close to the 15 mil originally as possible. So this income statement that we just spoke through includes the model 18, which is the 28 to 34% in year one and 34% to 40 in year two. So I'd have to take more. The deficit would be greater if I reduce it to the model 17.
And at the moment, we charge 28% of $739 on those second pedestals, which is $207. And if we were to go to 31%, then that $207 would increase to $230, rounding off. So that it'd be an $229, sorry, rounding down, $229. So that would be $207 to $229, a $22 increase per second pedestal in year one. If we went to the 34%, then 0.34 times 739 would go to 251. Yeah. And that would therefore be a $44 increase, of course, yeah, which is double the $22 increase per second pedestal. So that just puts some numbers around that. Do we see, Celine, you've got some numbers there, just in terms of the additional revenue that each model gives us, with the number of second pedestals we know we've got across all the different categories. Are we able to see that? The 31 versus the 34 in terms of total take?
So this was the model 17. And so in year one, you had the 39,812. And in year two, you had the 68,860. And if I open, yeah, and then in the second model, you have the 108,673 in year one and the 137,721 in year two. So it is a fair jump. Keeping in mind that your year one, so your year two is the additional revenue. You're still going to get your year one. So your year two is your 1 and 2 to added together.
Okay, so in year one, we get an extra $39,000 if we go up to 31%. And in year one, we get an extra $108,000 if we
Yep.
go up to 34%. Okay.
Like the price path, I mean, we will revisit this every year, so this time next year we can revisit whether or not you want to go to the 40 or you want to pull it back. Yeah.
Commentary on that or further questions? Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I know there's, and certainly as a rural ratepayer myself, I know the impact on rural rates around general rates. However, I also know the impact for residential ratepayers, and particularly for those, who live in my division, Division 4. I think the 6% rate increase, and certainly looking across the categories, noting the impact on our commercial operators in 1 year is too much. And I'd like to thank the team. I can't believe we're up to model 17 for this, 18. However, I'm based on those numbers and those forward projections, and I know this council's keen appetite to advocate and see where we can certainly get some support for that enormous capital works program we have coming our way for water. Yes, I'm supportive of the 31% for the second pedestal, being model 18, our final model. I'm 17. I'm not supportive of going the full 6% this year on those second pedestals.
I'll go around the room again. Councillor Froloff?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I totally agree with Councillor Shoemaker. I'm agreeable to model 17. Thank you.
Councillor Henson?
What was the revenue on the second year on that? We were 37.
39 in year one and 68 in year two.
68. Yeah, well, I'd be supportive of that one rather than the 108, 137. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Councillor Duff?
Yeah, I'm supportive of keeping it down, because I'm concerned about when I talk to those people from Nanango and the numbers of pedestals at some of those flats and different, like the caravan parks, it's just, yeah, I'm keen to keep that back, as Councillor Shoemaker has suggested.
Yeah, look, I, as you know, have been an advocate of this to a certain extent. I've never really probably determined where this would land in my mind in terms of the final percentage. But in light of the savings that have been made, and certainly in light of the information that Councillor Froloff brought to our attention the other day in terms of the impact on particularly one caravan park on a motelier, I'm concerned that I've thought about that. I've tossed and turned over that and slept on that the last few nights over the weekend. And I'm not keen to put any more pressure on our small businesses, our caravan parks, our motels than we need to. I'm actually of the view that we, again, for $39,000, we found enough savings in this budget already, I believe, to leave the sewerage second pedestal as it is at 28%, and to have further consideration, because we are put money in the budget for a rating review to be undertaken over the next 12 months, and I would like to see further work done on this. I am concerned that personally don't feel that we've consulted enough on this. I know we've tried, but we've had a lot on our plate the last 12 months. It's been hard to get out and talk to people. And when Councillor Froloff shared with me some stories about the impact it's going to have on some of the small businesses in her division, really got me thinking that, well, I actually haven't got out and spoken to those people. I don't really understand what is going to be the impact on their businesses. And if it's an extra $2,000 or $3,000 a year, I'd probably prefer to leave it alone until we do further consultation. That's just my view. That's a new position I've formed after listening to Councillor Froloff the other day. I'm wondering if in other divisions we're going to have the same problem with other hotels and motels and caravan parks. And certainly after the savings that we've found, and possibly we could find some more this afternoon yet, for $39,000, I'd probably prefer to leave the small businesses alone at this point in time. But certainly open-minded to have it further consulted through the community in time to come. So that's my position. So look, I think Councillor Shoemaker, we might just get, do we want to get something on the table and then we can speak for or against?
Yes, saying fair, we probably should get something on
In
the
relation
table
to-
and then just,
yes.
then we can just finalise it into the numbers.
And so, Mr. CEO, the only other matter I had was on that spreadsheet, that final sweep, there are a couple of more items to address in terms of comprehensive income, Selena, in relation to planning, infrastructure planning, and also relation to finance, including fleet. So
Did you
would
want to
like
just finish off sewage?
So
and-
can we get
yeah.
a sewage one?
Yeah,
up at
that'd be
least?
great if you wouldn't mind. That'd be
So
terrific.
it seems, so would someone like to put forward a motion at this stage to be at least voted on? Councillor Shoemaker?
Well, I just have a question in clarifying some of the statements that you've just made around 39,000, Mr. Mayor. I just want to confirm that that's for flats. My understanding has been that it's actually, is that including the change in the hospitals as well?
That's correct. That's
yeah.
that's flats, hospital, commercial, education. And
Can
the
we
other,
please have a look back at the CapEx program and how that impacts the CapEx program? And
so you have 2.3 mil. Can you see that, or do you need me to make it bigger? Okay, so year one you have 2.3 mil available. We're planning to spend 1.3. Your financing is the 791, so you're going to end up with a ending cash balance of 894,000. Year two, you're still putting money back into the restricted cash. Year three, we're spending more than we've got. Year four, there's a little surplus going back in, and you can see that's building into the outer years. So it's covering the current sewerage program. What it's not doing is building enough for your Mergen water treatment plan, which is one project. That's a massive one sitting in year 11. And it is currently covering the shortfall that we're getting in water. So it's a viable model. It's just a case of we just need to review it again next year. And the other good news is that when we apply those on-cost savings, there's about 76,000 that will come back into water and sewage, 38,000 in each. So the extra 38,000 that we're talking about now is going to come back in employee benefit savings as well.
That being the case, I'd like to move a motion now to the committee that the second pedestal charges for sewerage are maintained at the current 28% and are not increased in the 21-22 year. 28%, Lynelle, of the first pedestal charge, with no increase in the 21-22 year, and that the matter be considered as part of the future rates review and include extensive stakeholder consultation.
No. I've only modelled it going from 28 to 31%.
Yes,
Not maintaining it at 28%. Do you want me to maintain it at 28%?
Oh, that's what I'm proposing. It may not get up, Selena, so.
Oh, yeah, no. I just meant that this model that I've just been through doesn't reflect any of those numbers, so I'd have to remodel it if you wanted to see it.
Yes, correct. I understand that. But at this point in time in year one, $39,000 added, I don't think that's going to have a massive impact over the 10 years, particularly if we do look to increase it next year. I'm happy to consider an increase. I'm just simply saying that I'd like to do more community consultation, particularly with those small businesses that are going to be affected in light of how we're tracking in terms of our savings. When we started this process, we were looking at a $4.5 million deficit. We're now tracking sub 3. So I'm feeling comfortable that we're getting ourselves into a better position financially. And that cash modelling, in my view, is showing that we can probably afford to wait 12 months on this. But happy to be corrected. Okay, so I've moved the motion. Do we have a seconder for such? Councillor Froloff, thank you. Speakers for or against? Councillor Shoemaker?
can we just go back and have a look at the summary page of this, please? Yep, thank you. So I just want to confirm, we're maintaining the first pedestal charge with the increase, and this is just the second pedestal charge that we're talking about?
Yes, so the first pedestal charge has been maintained at $739, which is the same as this current year, and looking to maintain both first and second pedestal charges at $739 and $207. Councillor Duff.
So I'm actually going to speak against your recommendation, because we actually went out to the community and we said we were going to put the charges up because it was based around the fact that they were not in line with the other second pedestal charges. Pretty much we were right down there. We eventually are going to have to put them up to start to cover some of these costs. I'm keen to just go with the model 17.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm of the same view as Councillor Duff. I understand and certainly the impact, and I'm glad to see in this summary that, we have, by reducing it, we're not going the full 6%. I'm not supportive of that, but I am supportive of something, because I do worry at some point in time when you look at what we're charging in comparison to other local governments for our second pedestals, also noting, across hospital and education facilities, there's 840 pedestals alone that we know we are undercharging for and not receiving any revenue, which means residents are actually covering those costs. And I'm not supportive of that. I think we need a much fairer system, and something we've been given enormous amounts of information. I also note, yes, there will be an impact, but I agree with doing it in a much smoother transition than being in a position next year where we have to look at that 6% again or something much higher. I'm not comfortable with that. I'd rather do it incrementally. So it's only a very minor. I'm much more comfortable with increasing it by something. I'm not supportive of not increasing it at all. So I'll be voting against this for those reasons.
Okay. Any further speakers for or against before I go to right of reply? Councillor Frolov, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I totally agree with what Councillor Duff and Councillor Shoemaker have stated. This is hard. I've had numerous owners of units, motels, caravan parks in my area coming knocking on my door and asking what the hell we're doing. I'm in both minds. Like, I would like to see it. I can understand. I'd like to see it kept as what the Mayor has put the recommendation, but I also do understand that yes, we do have to do something. But Councillor Duff's always talking about not inhibiting the rural farmer and that we're taking too much from them, but we're also trying to get tourism and that back into the South Burnett, and these schools, especially the schools. I'm not worried about the hospital, but the schools, private schools, and that they're going to put that rate onto the fees to the parents, so the parents are going to cop another slog. The motel owners, they're going to put that onto the room for the night. So some poor family of 4 coming up to Kingaroy just wanted to have the country life, thought for a couple of nights, they're going to be slugged with that increase also. I'm in two minds. I just don't know where I sit at the moment. I just want to think about it while you go around the table.
I don't think you've got much time, Councillor, but anyway, Councillor Pension.
My go? Yeah, I'm afraid I am going to agree with Councillor Duff and Councillor Shoemaker. $22 increase, and Mr. Mayor, with all due respect, you advocated pretty hard and long about this early in the piece, and we compared other councils and we were way under the mark. We're talking 45 cents a week. So I'm supportive of that. what is it, 35 or 6 option you've come up with, option 17? 17.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Henson, for your observation. I did identify that I've advocated long and hard, so I acknowledge that at the start, and you'll also acknowledge, I'm sure, that I've worked hard, as everyone in this chamber has, to find significant savings. My advocacy at that point in time was based on the fact that we were looking down the barrel of a serious deficit. I feel with the work that we've done, though, we're in a different position now to where we were when that advocacy was undertaken. I do, again, believe that there are more savings to be found in overheads. I do believe that we should be trying to enable the economic development of our region, and part of that solution is to mitigate the impact of our rates on certainly our farmers. And I acknowledge your comments before in relation to farmers and the cattlemen doing well. I can assure you the crop growers are doing anything but well at the moment. Well, we should also be looking to mitigate rates on our pensioners, but most importantly also on young families, on our small businesses. And I was absolutely for this when I thought that there was nowhere else to go. But with the savings that were found, and I believe in conversations I've had, that there are opportunities to find more savings through our IT developments, through our depreciation review with our asset management plans, on water and wastewater assets included, that I would prefer to take our time and reconsider this in time to come, and hence the motion as it stands. So I'll leave it at that as the right of reply. Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Okay, that's right. Those against? Okay, motion has been defeated, 3 votes to 2. You've got that, Linnell, there. Okay, I'll now call for another motion from the floor. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that the committee recommends to council that the second pedestal charges for sewerage are increased by 3% as determined by Model 17. Sewerage increased by 3% as determined by Model 17. And that the matter be considered as part of the future rates review and continued stakeholder engagement is undertaken.
Mr. C, are you comfortable with the wording? Yep, okay. Speakers, so we have that there. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Henson, speakers for or against? Councillor Shoemaker?
Mr. Mayor, I'm hearing you and your comments made. There's been extensive work done around pedestal charges. By no means, I'm the regional development portfolio holder. By no means do I want to hinder growth and development. But the reality is, as you have said, user pay system, second pedestals, particularly in some of the facilities that we had, are at a cost to council's operations. It is important that we recover those costs, and I'm not a fan of residential ratepayers actually subsidising the cost of second pedestals for some of these other facilities. There is an opportunity, I understand entirely the impact on commercial operators, and I do believe there is an opportunity for those people to recoup the cost, where residential ratepayers certainly don't have that option. So whilst it's by no means would I like to see an increase, I do feel this is fair and reasonable. It's less than what council had originally engaged residents and impacted ratepayers across the region, and I do recognise there's more work to be done in this space. I do, however, feel that our state government counterparts who aren't paying general rates do need to pay their fair share when it comes to pedestal charges. There is an impact on our infrastructure. It's not fair that our residential ratepayers cover those costs. So it's my view that there needs to not increase the amount at all, would be irresponsible, and I do not want to be in a position next year where we have to look at giant increases again. I'd rather do this in a much more deliberate and considered way. So that's why I'm putting this on the table. Looked at the information presented, and we have ageing infrastructure and considerable issues into the future, and we need to be setting up our future generations. So I'm of the belief that this is fair and reasonable based on the information that I've been given and my very best judgment in the best interests of my community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Thanks, Councillor. Anyone else before we go to the vote? Look, I'll just respond to a couple of comments. I don't see it as irresponsible to leave this at 0%. I believe that we have done enough work in terms of finding savings, that there are more savings that can be found. I completely support the argument that the state-funded organisations should be paying their share, but unfortunately, with the legal advice that we've had, we can't do that without also impacting on our small businesses, being our caravan parks and our motels. And yes, I was an advocate for this process. I'm still an advocate for the process. I'm not prepared to support any increases at this stage, though, until we've done further consultation with those small businesses. And as I said, had we not been able to find the savings, we had nowhere else to turn. But as you do in business, you look for savings. If you can't find savings, you have to increase your prices, or you go to business. But if you can find savings, you can hold your prices where they are and take care of your customers and still stay in business. So I believe we've done the hard work. We've found the savings. And for that reason, I won't be supporting this motion. Okay, anyone else wish to speak? Otherwise, Councillor Shoemaker, right of reply. Thank you.
Yep, nobody else wants to speak. I, just in response to some of your comments, Mr. Mayor, I fully understand what you're saying there in terms of savings, and I can vouch I have worked very hard with this team, and we have found savings, but from the information presented here today, we've still got a very long way to go, and we need to set our community up with sustainable infrastructure into the long term. This is about just that. In my opinion, this is something that I believe former councils, if they had have been in a position to do so, would have liked to have done so. We're finally in a position where we need to start looking at these things. I do not agree with you. I think it would be irresponsible not to put something on the second pedestal, particularly after the extensive work that's been done. But certainly I'll leave it to the Chamber's decision.
Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried 4 votes to 1 with myself voting against. Okay, that matter's resolved. The only other component of the comprehensive income now statement.
We certainly can. Before we move to that, did we need to do the resolution for your first pedestal and your access based on the model?
Oh, do we, Mr. CEO? We haven't changed it.
So that one's already been bedded down? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I
Yeah,
just wasn't sure we
if
touched on
that's
it.
because we had done it's amending the previous. It's literally just amending the previous model now. I didn't think you had changed those other factors.
Yeah, I thought we left them as they were.
So it's so everyone's clear and we're all on the same page that when we come back and remember, it was only the real impact is on the second pedestal charge. The rest of it stayed the same. Correct? Yep. Brilliant.
Okay. So if we can go to finance here now. Yeah, thank you, Mr. CEO. Go to finance. There, just to explain the first line, the infras is such that it is looking quite possible that the $410,000 we've got in the current budget for amortisation in relation to our software and so forth, we may be able to actually not have to capitalise and amortise, and as such may be able to expense those annual costs. And that being the case, if we were to do that, we would not be able to capitalise the cost that we're currently incurring in relation to SaaS implementation, and we would then need an operational budget of 250,000 to cover the implementation costs for the next 12 months. That being the case, it is looking as though there is going to be a likely $160,000 saving if our business case is accepted by KPMG, which, having looked at the infras, it looks as though that could well be the case. I'm advocating for that. I expect that will be the outcome. But again, I'll leave it to the group. Is there any comment, Selena, or that you want to make, or Susan, on that before we go to councillors?
Yes, thank
the
you.
first one.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, that's all at the moment. None of that has been bedded down or substantiated, of course, because we're still writing the paper there to the auditors to see if we can, in fact, dispose of that asset. However, further to that, through the conversation there with the manager of ICT, a part of that as well is that it limits our capacity there to deliver these other projects that were normally funded by amortisation. So we probably wouldn't have, if this were to go through, we wouldn't have that amount of savings there. We would probably be about 100,000 short.
So that 250 should be 350?
Yes, it would come down to 150, Mr Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
Savings, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
And
Yep.
also that would be expensed, like the 410, there would be expense there if it were to go through. And if that wasn't spent within, obviously, the financial year, that would be technically a saving to council there as well, yeah.
So what would you suggest in terms of the numbers? Can we plug those in now? Who's got control of the machinery? Thank you, Selena. Could you plug those in for us then? And then we can green that out. Thank you.
So how much was the proposed budget? Are you going back to the 410? What amount did you want to propose?
Look, Mr Mayor, I'm really cautious about not recognising that 410 at the moment until it's bedded down. Like it's been discussed today, we can always do that first quarter review or second quarter review. I'm just, yeah, it's with the changes to the standard, it's just how we're going to recognise this asset. So I'm just, yeah.
We'll leave that one alone. Thank you, General Manager. I'm happy to take out the 2 lots of 10,000 on general advice and investigation. So can we just delete those 2 rows there, Selena? Leave that alone. I won't make it any tougher on our CEO. Who knows what's going to come our way next year. So no changes there. No, hopefully not a lot. Hopefully we'll find some savings there, Mr. CEO. Just in terms of postage, printage and stationery, we went and looked at year-to-dates, and it seems as though because we've got budget elsewhere, Selena.
That's correct, but I've just noticed that all these changes here are actually General Manager O'May's area. So there's another $12,135 that needs to be taken off his budget.
Peter? Okay. Selena, by my calculations, you don't need 30,000 for FBT, you only need 20.
No.
Would that be correct?
I'm happy. We paid 18 last financial year, so look, if you want to drop it to 20, I'm okay with that.
Thank you. Moving on then down to infrastructure planning. And
Sorry, before we do that, do we need to adjust the resolution for the planning of the parks communities area, because we actually put a dollar value in of 464,000, and that's now changed.
Yeah, we will. So those, yeah, I suppose we've all got tricked up with that, them sitting in finance. So they're not actually, so they are generally sitting in Pete's budget. Yeah.
Yeah, all these
Yeah.
business units are Peter O'May's.
With the leave of the meeting, can we just go back, Linnell, and so what's it, add 12,000 onto that number? 12,135. Linnell, can we just, with the leave and the consent of the meeting, we'll just amend that number to reflect actuals? 135 in savings.
$8,000, Selena.
Was what you took off Carolyn for postage. Poor Carolyn.
Did you want to speak against that, General Manager?
I would like to say that we spent 110, 104,000 to date, and I agree that we need to do something in the printing area. However, I don't know that we're there yet. You know, we're trying to, for the rates notices, we're trying to get email addresses and get everyone converted to email, but that's going to take some time. So look, happy to bring it back if it goes over, but that budget is for the whole of the the whole of general operations, so it is lean.
Sorry, I thought we still had budget for printing and stationery over in the departments. We're just
No,
pulling
we
postage.
took all of them. That's what we've taken out here, and then we've also, the only ones that would have budget would be your water, sewage, waste, and fleet, because
okay.
they need to be full cost.
All right. So are you suggesting that we don't make those adjustments?
I think the 92,500 would be more realistic to where you may end up.
Okay. So we'll take the 8,000 out, leave that at 92,500. Rightio. So then going down through to fleet. Sorry, we're going to do fleet now.
Can you, just a query on those. So the library postage and that, will that go back to, like, is that just going to go back to corporate or something? Is that all like going to the one area?
It should be. Well, that's why we took your budget.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. And the actuals will go back to where the budget goes. So, yeah.
Okay, fleet. We've done, so the average price of fuel over the last 12 months across the two fuel types is $1.26 per litre, as reported by the RACQ for Queensland, which picks up the southeast corner, which has had a higher average than regional Queensland. The average rate for this next 12 months, if we were to assume, was $1.45, and there's no forecast on that at this stage. That's all crystal ball gazing. But let's say that went to an average of $1.45. I think at the moment it's around $1.36 or something for diesel, for example. Then based on the consumption of 820,000 litres, which is this year's consumption, and when we adjust for a reduction of 20 white fleet, if the set is able to achieve that, then, and I think we're halfway there almost, General Manager, then we could see a further reduction in fuel of $100,000 over the 1,180 that we had originally budgeted after Councillor Shoemaker's reduction. Similarly, with the registration insurance, if we can reduce our white fleet pool by 20, you would see those savings flow through. And small equipment purchases, I think we need to adjust that one, don't we? Because
yes,
take that out because it's an offset against revenue, yeah?
I need to increase it. So your recoveries is in your revenue part of the fleet is at 135,000. So the expense needs to be offset against that revenue. If you want a lower expenditure budget, we need to adjust the on cost to collect less. So that budget there at this point should be 135,000.
So we need to increase the 40 to 135. Have we then got budget in other departments, though?
No, we should.
No one's got a small equipment budget.
No, they shouldn't. No.
Right, so it'll all be bought through fleet and passed on to the department. Right, okay. That set me back on my heels. Right, so we lost 95 there. All right. Okay.
Sorry, Mayor. I'm concerned about the 20 white fleet and how are we going to work that? I know that people are worried that they see one person in a white ute driving around and that, but there is a lot of council workers that have to go out on their own to a job. So we're going to have someone just pick them up, drop them off, come back, pick them up. Wouldn't that cost more?
I'm not getting into the operations of it. It's a matter for the senior management team. It's a target that I'm keen for them to pursue. If it can't be achieved, it can't be achieved. Take it out. But I mean, I'll be guided by the senior executive team. I don't know how much we've reduced it by thus far. I know Aaron's dealt with a couple. I don't know about Peter if you've actually been able to find some fleet savings in your area. But you know, we're spending $1.7 million a year. 1.7 million is a big number on white fleet in this council. And I'd like to see how that stacks up against industry benchmarks for an organisation of our size. We have to deal with this issue, and if you want to put it aside for another 12 months or 3 months or however long, that's fine. But I will speak strongly advocate for a review of this area, because I do feel that there is some truth in the community perception that we perhaps have more white fleet than is suitable for the size of our operations, and that there must be some efficiencies there that we can find. But happy to be corrected.
No, I agree with you that we could get rid of some extra white fleet, but you just said that this is a target, like you'd like to get to 20, but if we can't get to 20, you're not going to push it, that we've got to get rid of 20.
Guided by the senior executive team. How many are we up to so far across the board? Where are we at over the last few months?
Okay, Mayor, I'm regrettably, well, not regrettably, actually, it has turned out pretty well. That'll be a story of another report. But had to talk to the solicitors last Wednesday, so I missed the end of that last conversation. But in my head, and probably this might help just progress this afternoon, is that that's the target we've been offered. We'll come back. There will be a formal report come back and saying these ones have gone to auction. I had it in my head that we wouldn't be fire, and I'm happy to stand corrected. As I said, I did, and we just haven't had the opportunity to sit down and compare notes over it. But like, you wouldn't do anything, well, any person, throw them up on, I'm going to be flippant, but throw them up on eBay and fire sale them. We'll be disposing of them. So there will be, so it's a target, it's a budget target. There'll be a formal report come back, and again, not meant, it won't be written up as, oh, the excuse is, fact, reason, this is what we've been able to achieve, where do you want us to go next? Is that's where your head's at? Yeah, and that's what I've always understood all the way along, is that we would be, and yeah, we'll certainly dispose of them because that'll bring more cash. Well, all of a sudden, dispose of an asset, so you've got more cash coming in, we're not replacing that asset, so getting rid of a lazy asset.
So if we've already made reductions in fleet costs in departments such as infrastructure, have those reductions in registration, insurance and fuel costs been accounted for by plant and fleet in their budget?
Sorry, no.
Because I don't know that they have they?
No, not at this point in time, Mr. Mayor, no, it hasn't.
Being the case, if we don't find, if we leave the budgets as they are at the moment for fleet, we will be over allocating based on the numbers of vehicles that we'll have, because I thought we were talking the other day that we'd already identified about 7 vehicles to go. I can recall that number being discussed at the workshop. 7 in Aaron's area. Yeah. So look, we'll go around the table. Do you want to just take all that out and leave it till a review is undertaken and see where we end up with how many vehicles we take out, or what's the view of the group? Councillor Duff, Councillor Shoemaker, sorry.
Well, just looking here, Mr. Mayor, on terms of, you know, what we discussed last week and the agreed savings across the board, you know, what you're proposing here isn't an enormous change. So I'm happy to just leave it as it lies at the moment until we do that review, so it can be done in a responsible way, is my view at the moment. It's not a drastic change on the savings that have already been found in the budget. So at this point in time, I probably don't see a lot of point in pursuing this until we've certainly done the work and can back it up. I think at the moment it's right to leave it with the staff. I know have the team work through it and then come back to council with a recommendation. Certainly, I'd love to see more savings in this area, and I know we're on a journey to achieve that, and we're on a journey to achieve that together. So I welcome the opportunity to continue focus in this area, but certainly what you're putting forward here isn't, in terms of the overall budget, a giant saving, so I'm happy to sit with where we're at the moment.
Does anyone object to that? No? Councillor, everyone's in favour with that?
So
Councillor Duff?
I'm keen to put the challenge out there to have the reduction of the 20 white fleet. Yeah.
And if that's, I'm probably going to lose this one again.
So-
So if that's the case, so be it. Well, I mean, we've already we're overfunding you by 7 vehicles already, are we not?
So
Anyway, look, I won't say any more. Let's leave it at that. Okay, that being the case.
By all means,
Well-
Mr. Mayor, put a motion up. If you're backing it, yeah, by all means.
Okay, well, I'll put the motion that the adjustments to the fleet budget as, how do we word that, Mark? As provided,
We're just adopting that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Sorry, Mayor, my apologies. That's just, I'm sorry, you've just lost me somewhere along the line here, and it could be me. But if they're left up as a target, so I didn't think, well, anyway, what I was hearing.
Oh, sorry, I was confused.
Yeah.
Are we doing that as a review, or are we actually going to put that up? Because I know we're
This is
Councillors are
what you're proposing for the budget. Is that what we're talking about?
That's what I'm proposing.
Yeah, that's what I'm. So the target is that the fleet's reduced by 20, and I suppose, and my apologies if I'm confused, but all I'm saying is, like, I wouldn't. It's just good practice from, and I'm not suggesting this is what you've suggested, but we wouldn't run out tomorrow and throw 20 vehicles on the, now if they're parked and they go to auction, or they go, what's the best way to dispose of them? What's the best value? So if we're going to reduce the fleet, now if it comes back in a month's time and we said, well, okay, we've identified, I'll pick a number, 17, these are the facts, we've got to there, the last 3 are going to be the hard part, we've disposed of the 17 and we're going to work. It's just good management practices of how we progress it forward. So you're adopting, I don't want to sound like I'm arguing against keeping fleet, but yeah, if it's an area for review, council's made it a priority area for review, it's being reviewed. And
Sorry, Mr. CO3, Mr. Mayor, I believe the committee's already resolved to receive a report for fleet. Was its resolution for fleet?
and that was my comment, is I missed that end of that last conversation, so, and we haven't had a chance to catch up.
And it's my understanding the committee's already agreed on the target. So if there's anything in addition to the target, Mr. Mayor, that you're proposing here, by all means, put it up. I just don't see the savings with what we need to do with small fleet that you've proposed are enormous. But by all means, every dollar counts. So if you're passionate about this, I don't think you've lost anything. By all means, put it up. We'll discuss it.
Well, we need a motion for this, Mark?
Oop, there we go. Morse code, tap, 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 SOS. No, well, we will deal, given what we just did with finance, I was taking it, we'll just deal with this as one resolution. So whatever we agree by consensus going forward is to, unless there is dissent, yeah, and if you want to deal with it individually, happy to, but these ones, given these budgets have already been through, I'll just need an umbrella resolution saying, okay, these amendments be forwarded onto the budget for consideration into the final document. But yeah, if you want to do them each individually, we could knock one over for finance or just pick them all up as one job lot.
Oh, look, from my point of
Either
view,
or, don't mind.
I was happy just to do an umbrella resolution at the end, once we get the green highlighter across those areas you want to go with. So at this stage, same process. What are our thoughts? Do you want to leave that in or take it out or put a smaller amount?
Well, I'm probably of the view we've done every other area individually, so I think it should be the same. We've just gone through communities. I think I was expecting a recommendation for finance, and then one for fleet, because I think there are differing views across the different areas. So I think I don't want one bulk resolution. I'd rather we work through these by department as we have with every budget workshop. So by all
Yeah,
means,
look-
Mr Mayor, put your recommendation up.
Okay, that's fine. They'll get the same outcome at the end of the day. So, yeah, I'll put to motion forward then that the adjustments be made to the finance and fleet budgets. How are we going to word that, Mark? We make reference to this document, or
Yeah.
as included on the? Can we provide this as an attachment on the attached worksheet? On the attached worksheet. Yep, and we'll provide this as an attachment. That'll be corporate. No, that one's gone, so it's fine. Finance, that's one's finance, Linnell, that 10 grand. Oh, it's Selena. Oh, that's you.
It's
So,
just,
yeah.
just saying, showing you the total of each section. So fine, if you were going to do separate ones.
Yeah, so we're just doing finance and fleet at this stage, so it's just the 10.
They're two separate units. Finance is a
Can I
separate.
put them under one resolution?
Oh, it's up to you. I guess
So we've got finance 10,000 and fleet would be yeah. To the finance as per the attached worksheet being reduction of $10,000 to the okay, what are we looking at there? The FBT budget and and how much is that, Selena? Sorry, 34,400 reduction to the fleet. 400 reduction to the fleet. Yes. Okay. Yep, that's correct. Thank you, Linnell. I'm happy with that. Okay, do we have a seconder? Okay, thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Speakers for or against?
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Henson?
Can I just ask the 34,000, or Selena, sorry, the 34,000?
So we had the decrease in the fuel of the 100,000, a decrease in registration of 15, a decrease in insurance of 14,400, but we had to increase your small plant by 95 to offset the recoveries.
Just added and be included in the budget.
Oh, yes, thank you, Mr. CEO. Okay, go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Rightio. Let's move on to your area, General Manager Mia. You've been sitting there patiently all this time. Infrastructure planning. Can you give any more? Materials, we've got a $5,000 reduction there to give us cost recovery on the soil lab. Any feedback, comments on that? Thank you, General Manager. Consultants, that's the 400 that we had where we were looking to capitalise, I think 220, and we had 185 in OPEX for the planning, senior planning engineer. If we were to take 80,000 off that, that 180 would come back to, that 185 would come back to 105. Look, it's up there as a conversation piece. I'm keen to hear views on that. GM, you want to talk to it? Thank you.
Yeah, no, through you, Mr. Mayor. So you're probably wondering what I've been doing for the last 2 hours. I've just been flicking through what numbers are and we have there. Look, in all honesty, I fully appreciate the idea to make savings. What I would say to council, I've probably sweated this unit as much as I can. I've had a look. I think I've dropped James's overall unit cost by 233,000 this year based on last year. So if we were to reduce the consultants in that area, there would be an impact on services and delivery for us as an organisation, particularly with design across the organisation. So the only one I did find there is probably an option to reduce by about 10K across the asset stuff that we were looking to do next year, which would be, given that we're looking to partner in with QTC, so there's probably a little bit there. Would recommend that 10 grand, Mr. Mayor, if that was a consolation in that price, that would allow us, if we're going to partner up with QTC, we obviously, I think that would reduce our need to externalise some of that work and just see how we go. And if there's an issue after that, I'm happy to come back to council and have a chat.
On the basis that we're paying 400,000 for a contractor to deliver 40 hours a week work, is there scope to look at perhaps, and again having that conversation, to go to an employee at some stage of the future, not wanting to get into operations? It's just a simple question. Is it something we could potentially consider?
With that, we've obviously done a capital split on there at the moment. It's one that we're probably working through with Mark at the moment to just look at what that looks like over the next 6 to 12 months. So I envisage that we'll find a way out of this situation, hopefully, in the next 12 months. So particularly if we bring in that advanced design program this year, I think there's an opportunity for council, a bit like some of the discussion we had earlier this morning, just to look at some of our operations and how we plan some of this stuff later in the year.
Yeah, General Manager. Look, on that basis, I'm happy to take that one out then. Where are we? Leave that at the 185 and then work in progress over the next 12 months to see if we can put in place a more cost-effective senior engineering planning solution. We'll leave that with yourselves to sort that one out.
Yeah, I was about to say, where's the 10?
Well, I thought you were inserting that, Selena. Selena, I'm relying on you to insert it. Come on. You're dragging the chain.
I have the line ready. I have the line ready. I'm waiting for
Well, I
detail.
saw you there. I was waiting. I thought you were typing it in while we were talking. Don't miss an opportunity, Selena. If he gives 10, you grab it quickly.
Can you tell me what the
Asset
account and where it is?
Asset planning?
Yeah, 1107. Yep. Yep, so what is the budget? Yeah. Good try. So it's the Natural Account Consultants? Same line, yeah.
It's a start, General Manager. To the consultants and materials budgets. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duff. Those speakers for or against? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, that's the agenda complete. We'll now call the meeting to a close at 5:55 p.m. Thank you all for your attendance.